Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to today's episode of the Ride MTB podcast. It is the first episode in our new space, and just really excited to have you guys here. Today, we're going to be talking with Shawn Spomer, who is the content director of VitalMTB.com, and he's the reason that the site even exists in the first place. So he's been a huge influence on the mountain bike space, especially in North America. Today's episode is really fun, and yeah, just excited for you guys to take a listen and see what you think. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
First one. Ooh, glad to be your guinea pig.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully,
I think.
yeah, hopefully it goes well. I'm really excited because it's hard for me to understand exactly how much of an impact you've had on my life, and you probably don't realize how, but indirectly through Vital MTB, like that's such a big part of American racing and American mountain biking as far as like the core enduro downhill scene. And yeah, it's a huge part. I remember the first time we ever got a feature or did anything on that. And I mean, even the bar drag bounty contest you guys used to do.
Yep.
So it's cool to have you here. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here for sure. And I appreciate when you're like, yeah, I've had an impact on your life, but there have been so many people that have made everything I've been able to do possible that it's hard to kind of take any credit for it, you know? And I just want to thank all those people out there that have helped. We can get in that later, but yeah, it's a team effort. It has nothing to do with just me. So I want to put that out there. And before we get started, I want to derail you a little bit, but this is a VHS tape. It's an old form of how mountain bike media used to be distributed. I'd like to give you one. This is my first movie from 2001.
No way.
Alpha Project. Yep.
That's so rad.
Yep. It's Colorado downhill, and all that stuff started where I just went and filmed clips of each race, and I had so many. I'm like, well, let's just put it onto a VHS tape. So that's how that worked. And then there's one of the last 3 Litter Mag stickers around, and then a Vital MTB Tater Tots coming out of a fanny pack sticker too. So yeah.
That's awesome. The first trophies to add to the podcast.
Sweet.
That's cool. That's awesome. So was Alpha Project, was this, like you said, your first kind of media project that you did, or is that even like?
So that was the season of 01. I think in 2000, I started filming mountain bike stuff. I loved skateboarding growing up, and basically when I got a job good enough to kind of pay rent and have a car, had a little bit extra money, the first thing I did was buy a VX1000, a Sony camera, because that's what all the skateboarders used to film, and I'd film my friends with this little VHS-C camera that I had and stuff. But I started filming because I was okay at racing, like sport class, but one of those things where like, not good at racing, but hey, I like watching the fast riders go fast, and so I started filming them and slowly meeting people and going to the races and just kind of standing out in the weeds, filming and putting stuff together. And I had a website back then. I think it was Shawn164.com. And VX1000 allowed pretty easy digital editing back then. And I would put stuff on the internet on my website, like a race video that was 4 minutes long. I think the file size was like 4 megs. If like it was 8 megs, it was huge. And I'd put that up there and use like MTBR and I think Ride Monkey at the time to kind of spam out like, hey, here's a video from Tour Canyonlands or something. And yeah, ultimately that stuff just started. I stacked up all those edits and decided to put it into a VHS tape. I got distribution from Just Push Play or Video Action Sports or something. And yeah, had to get all the music rights cleared and everything. It was a huge pain. It sold 1,000 copies, I think. But I was like, I've got a video out there, you know, for the world to see. So it was pretty fun to do.
That's cool. Yeah. When you sell a movie like this, if you sold 1,000 copies, does the distributor take a huge cut of it and then you get a portion of it, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think I want to say it sold for $20 and I think I'd get like $4 a copy. So hardly worth the effort, but you know, the experience and the fun. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
But was it one of those things where picking up the camera kind of allowed you to be a part of the core scene without having to be like the top rider?
100% for sure. Yeah. I remember, like that's good friend, Matt Thompson. He's the reason Vital MTB exists. He's on the cover, but he was on a team called Big Crank and they were running race series and stuff, with this guy, Eric Jean, called Cycle Syndicate back then. And I remember just emailing like info at Cycle Syndicate and being like, hey, I shoot mountain bike videos. You know, I'd love to get involved with you guys. Cause they were the best guys around, you know, best riders around at the time. And yeah, Eric wrote back, thankfully, and took me to one of their secret downhill trails to film. And everyone else was pretty suspect. Like, what's this guy doing here? You can't film our trails. These are secret. You know, we don't want anyone to see them. But that's how our relationship started. And yeah, I'm like, they're the pros. Like, I want to go film the pros. And yeah, that's how it got to be. It was a desire to be around bike riders that were so good at what they did, you know?
So when did you start transitioning into doing more photography? And because, you know, one of the first times I heard about you was when you were doing more of the photography side, and especially shooting a lot of kind of the Aaron Chase and Kyle Eppett and that street era. Was that years later?
So I think that was '01. And then I think the next year I went to race Tour of Canyonlands again, and I pulled my derailleur into my spokes like on my first practice run in Moab. And I had just bought in Colorado, the city of Longmont police auction. They had their like investigative camera go up, like their camera kit. I got an old Pentax with a bunch of lenses for like $100. And in college, all my friends did photography. I never did. I was like, oh, I'm going to try and take pictures. And so thankfully I brought that camera with me to that race and just stuck around and took pictures the whole race. It was just print film. I just printed the prints out, scanned them, put them on my site, I think, and probably spammed them out on Ride Monkey and stuff. But, you know, slowly get more interested in photography and like, oh, you use a flash outside in the sun. I remember John Tomac and his team were out at Moab in either 2000 or 2001 maybe, but they had their photographer, I'm sure, who was pretty big time at the time. I didn't know who he was, but it's a bright sun. We're in the desert and he has a flash. I remember walking up like, why are you using a flash? It's sunny out. He kind of just looked at me like, dude, come on. But, you know, understanding like, you know, lighting, filling the shadows, this and that. And that just kind of took me into the photography realm and riding with those guys to races like the nationals, and basically through the internet, just kind of slowly getting a couple good photos out here and there and getting a little bit of recognition. I think brands could see there wasn't a lot of that going on at the time, and, you know, was reached out to by a couple different brands and say, hey, if you're going to Mount Snow, can you send us photos of your riders? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be sweet. And, you know, just slowly went on from there. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
The first time that, you know, I really saw you making a huge splash was with Litter Magazine, and, you know, doing a lot of the slideshows and kind of creating or curating that, which for the first time, which is really influential in the industry.
Yep.
And so how did Litter Mag start from your Shawn.com? When did you go from that to doing like something more formal, like a Litter Magazine?
Sure. So in 2003, I was going around shooting photos at basically the nationals, and if there were little road trips in between, you know, I'd get photos, and I would try to submit to magazines. Didn't really have a whole lot of luck, obviously putting stuff online. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to make my own magazine. And so I moved to Reading at the time, not too far from Chico, and kind of a downer time for me, like just with things going on and stuff. And I just sorted myself up there.
How old were you at this time?
30. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to make a magazine. And I actually was working in a photo lab there, and still had kind of the job I had in Colorado doing web stuff. So I was able to have enough money to do this sort of thing, and say, I'm going to see what happens. And so I looked into printing costs and basically made a half-size magazine, because I had photos and I had these things that I wanted to talk about, but they weren't going anywhere. So I figure if I just print it myself, well, maybe I can distribute it a little bit or get it out there and at least have fun and kind of get the art project out of my system. That's always been a big part, is just the creative element. Personally, I think that's probably 80% of it. Like once I'm done with the project, I'm like, oh, okay, it's out of my system. And like, if it goes anywhere, I don't really care, but that's what that started out as. So I made a print magazine, and it was like a half-size magazine. Just kind of handed it out at races, and had to have a website, you know, thinking like, oh, if people are going to find the magazine, it's got to be a website. And yeah, I think I made 1,000 copies of those, and people seemed pretty into it. I tried to sell ads, but I'm not a salesperson, just with the people I was talking to or like the brands I was dealing with. And there wasn't a lot of reception to it. And it was just hard getting it out there, because it was almost like it had to be face to face, handing out a magazine, going to a race. Not a lot of people were coming in online. And also the internet was coming around a lot more. Like is print really something I want to try and do again? And so after the print edition, I think so maybe in '04, I didn't do a print edition, but I took it all online and called it OLS, like an online supplement. But it was the exact same layout. It was basically pages of the magazine just on the screen. You can click next. I tried to do a couple things with some funny features in it, like almost like a trivia version where, okay, here's page 1 and 2, and then you had like 2 or 3 choices to click to get to the next page, and you might get stuffed if you pick the wrong one, and then you had to go back. So
like Rick-rolling people or something?
Basically, yeah. So they're fun things, and it was easy to be creative with online stuff, because just make it and blast it out and not have to worry about details too much. And so the online magazine eventually just turned into more of a web portal, as probably by '06 or '07. But with my work at Litter Mag, I ended up meeting Scott Hart at a race in Durango, and he was running Mountain Biking magazine at the time, and he'd helped me out. He'd taken some of my photos for mountain biking, and eventually he and his guys working with Ralph Hauser and Dave House over at Mountain Biking ditched it all to start Decline, and eventually 26. And that went on for a little bit, and Scott would use my photos, and eventually I got hired on to work there. So I stopped doing litter stuff. I think in '05, '06, I was over at Decline, and it was awesome. It was just a great time.
And this whole time, you're primarily focused on like the American downhill scene, or what was your focus?
Yeah, downhill and gravity, like street stuff. And it's funny back then because I look at some of the old things I did, and like the idea of free ride, there was this weird animosity about it, at least, within my circles. But like, Rampage had come out in '01 and free ride videos are taking off and racing's kind of getting pushed to the side. And there was this weird idea of free riders aren't as good as racers. And while like maybe technically that was true at the time, like they're out riding bikes and doing things. And so the focus that I had mostly was racing and, stuff like Aaron on doing street things with like he and Kyle and all that. So it was downhill racing.
And at that time too, there were several racers who would also do the free ride competitions and really like kind of clean up a little bit, like Cedric Gracia and Greg Menard and guys like that.
Straight.
So, yeah, and straight too. So that's it was interesting to see that dynamic where the racer guys would say, you guys kind of suck at this, and like I'm just going to do this also. And then it's weird that you're getting so much attention for this thing that we're also good at, but we also race on the weekend. And it's been interesting to see the industry over the last decade or so just really diverge and kind of segment into so many different little areas. Like you have slalom specialist, pump track specialist, dirt jump specialist. And back then it was like, you're just a rider. And, even further back, like Tomac and those guys, they did cross country, downhill and everything.
For sure.
But it's been interesting to watch that specialization of the sport for sure.
Yeah.
And that era was also kind of like the peak American downhill era, right? Like Norba days and all that stuff.
Yeah, when I first got my feet wet in there, like kind of '01, '02, '03, like nationals were a big deal, and then by the mid 2000s, it started to kind of fizzle out, I think. Yeah. So
because I remember talking to Troy Lee's brother at a race, in 2015 or 14 or something, and we were just chatting, and he's like, "Yeah, I used to be a top 10 guy, and just being 10th place most of the time, I was making $100K a year."
Crazy.
Yeah, doing Norba Nationals with all, Jeep and Mountain Dew and all these big sponsors. And then after the '08 crisis and kind of leading up to that '06, '07, '08, then that went away a lot. And then it's been slowly building, but it almost seems like now it's pulling away from a lot of the racers as well. So it's kind of getting it. There was a little golden period, I feel like, in the mid, 2000 teens that was pretty good again. And then still the top guys make a lot of money now and can make a living, but it seems like that 5th to 10th US racer guys having a hard time again now.
For sure.
But it was interesting back then, people would make a living just out of going to the nationals and racing, getting top 10. And it's a pretty cool scene back then.
Yeah, it was for sure. And I don't want to backtrack too far, but I don't want to leave out that Martin Whiteley was a big help with me kind of keeping my career going, because in 2004, after seeing some of the photos I'd posted of Andrew Neathling, who was on Global in 2003, Martin asked if I'd want to shoot the U.S. races for the Honda G-Cross team, which was Greg Menard and Cyril Kurtz at the time. And so that was an honor. I'm just like, really? Me? Yeah. Honda? Like Menard? Like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And so that's when I was trying to transition from film camera to digital camera. And I knew I had to have a digital camera because there was, basically day of delivery with photos. And two good friends of mine from church at the time named Lou and Kathy Rosemerick, they gave me the money up front to buy this digital camera body that allowed me to go to the nationals that year. And that's I feel like that's when stuff took off and I realized like, oh, like I can quit a job and go do this, full time. And so I just wanted to backtrack and, put that out there that one, it was a ridiculous honor to be shooting this crazy new Honda with Menard on it. And just that, a guy like Martin would take a chance on me to take photos of his team because I posted stuff on Ride Monkey and Litter Mag,
Did you ever get to ride that bike at all?
No.
Oh, really?
No. And I think I was kind of green enough to where I didn't want to pry. I didn't know my place. Like I'd even be.
Did you ever touch it?
I don't know if I did. I think eventually I did because Greg came out to Vail to film a part for, it's not Earth 2. What was the movie? Whatever Rankin was doing at the time, like the second one. And so I got to ride in the gondola with Rankin and Greg with the bike there. And so I must have touched it, but he wouldn't say anything about what was inside or, all that, but it sure looked good.
Yeah, that's so crazy. I know that was right when I started to get in the industry, but it was so cool to see that Honda. And then just the fact that they were winning on it, it just
Yeah.
made it seem like it was magic, secret
Yeah.
sauce. And then later on, Greg just wins on everything. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, right.
like it
For
was
sure.
really good, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny. Apparently there's like one or two of them still left in the world, and then a lot of other ones got melted down. But I think Greg has one hanging in his shop in South Africa.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard. Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Crazy.
What was it like? Did you get to start traveling more at that point then? Like, did they bring you to the races and travel you around the world and stuff?
With that deal, it was just kind of a lump sum, and like you take care of yourself, you get there. And so I would travel with Matt and those guys, big crank guys, and yeah. So I was North America only. Like I've technically been to a European World Cup in what was it in Cortina, Italy, in like 1998. But that was just because my sister lived in Austria at the time, and my dad said, "Let's go see that race," and I saw Marla Streb, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's Marla Streb! Wow!" But for work, I've only done North American stuff, and it's just up to me to get to the races and travel with people and travel with Clay Porter. And, we just road trip, like the crew at Yeti. They would let me ride from Mount St. Anne to Colorado in the crammed in the back of the Yeti truck. And so it was just fun dirt bagging it and just make it work. I'm sure I lost money, the whole year, but the experience was worth it for sure.
Was Clay just like a super grom at that point with
Super grom,
just a camera, just trying to build his name up?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, he had like a VX 2000 just on the side of the course doing his thing, and yeah, building it all up. So
It's cool to see. I mean, at that time, the mountain bike industry was so small, and I'm assuming, I guess, at this point, but were a lot of the guys that you kind of built that foundation, that community with back then, they ended up being pretty influential figures in cycling as it grew forward, right? Like, I mean, Clay had such a huge impact on the sport, and Alex Rankin, and I mean, even Martin Whiteley, and all these, like a lot of the riders that you were there photographing and filming at that time and being with, they're still have their fingers heavily in the sport and are kind of shaping it now.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's kind of with any, like if you call it industry or whatever, but it's relationships you make over time, and it's time invested. Like I couldn't just walk up and do what I do now without knowing the people I know. Or think about someone like Sven Martin, who's out on the scene. Like the reason he gets the photos he gets is because he's known these people for 20 years and he has an intimate relationship with them, on the track or in the pits. And I think that's what's neat about our industry is that the relationships matter and they get cultivated over time. And in the end, it makes everything that we do better, So, yeah.
So at what point now, it's mid 2000s, you have your website, you have everything kind of growing with Litter Mag. And then there was a certain point where it kind of Vital approached you, or, Vital Media Network approached you. How did that play out? And what was kind of the peak that Litter Mag got to get Vital interested?
Okay. So again, comes back to Matt Thompson, but with Litter Mag, basically anything I've done, I've just ripped off. I rip off Thrasher or Surfline or whatever. Like Surfline was doing slideshows at the time where it was a photo with an audio clip in the background. And I thought that was incredible. And so I'm like, okay, figured out how to make that for Litter Mag, and we'd get audio clips at the races to put in the background of photographs, and it seemed to go pretty well. And one day Matt writes me and says, "Hey, have you gone to vitalmx.com?" I'm like, "No, what's that?" I know about Vital Skate and BMX. Well, MX, they're doing slideshows too. I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." And they had a slideshow player. And this was '08, I guess. And Litter was getting to the point where it was running kind of like like the site we have now. It's like, trying to update news daily or post videos or things like that. And it was a lot of work. And I had a little bit of support, but not much. And I went to Interbike that year and I put a deck together. I actually looked at it yesterday. I was going to bring it, but it was too embarrassing to bring it. Put a deck together to go try and sell ads, and this is '08. So it's like print is still king, but like everyone knows that web's important. Like being online is important. And again, I'm not a salesman. I went to Interbike. I had a meeting with Dane Zafke. Thank you, Dane. And was just sweating, nervous. It was the worst. I don't know if he remembers. And then I had a meeting with one other person there, but they went nowhere because I don't know what I'm doing. And it got to the point where I'm like, it's just too much work. Like I'm working side jobs and doing photography, like contributor stuff, which was, paying the bills. But like, I can't keep this up. I'm going to have to get a day job, or figure something out. And Matt let me know that Vital was doing slideshows, and out of the blue, I just hit the contact button at the bottom, like info at Vital MX or something, Vital Media Network, and just said, hey, I see you've got a BMX site, you've got a moto site, mountain bike right in the middle. Here's what I'm doing with Litter Mag, slideshows, like covering stuff. Is there any way you'd, want to try and work together? Thinking, yeah, right, never going to happen.
At least this way they couldn't see you sweating.
That's right, for sure. And I don't remember how long it took, but I was working at The Fix, a bike shop in Boulder, with Alex Clark. Thank you, Alex. He was awesome. So yeah, Brad McDonald, the owner of Vital Media Network, who started Ride BMX magazine in his dorm room in the 80s. Like, he's got a big history at Trans World. He was publisher over there and realized print was dying and went and started Vital Media Network in 2006 with the skate site, the BMX and the moto site. And he wrote me back. He's like, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, what are you thinking? And we just started talking, and lo and behold, he's like, yeah, let's start Vital MTB. And Todd Toth, who's been there since day one, he's kind of like VP of sales. He was there too. And he worked with GT back in the day. And so he had a big mountain bike background, but he had back issues and hadn't been riding mountain bikes for a long time. And so he understood that, like, yeah, mountain biking's pretty cool. Maybe this could work out. And yeah, after kind of discussing it, figuring things out, we launched Vital MTB, turned off Litter Mag, and turned it into Vital MTB in 2009 at the end of July. And so, like, short version is that Brad rides all the time. He's a super crazy cross-country nerd. Todd rides all the time. He was able to get back into bikes, and, it's stoked just to see how mountain biking has changed their lives again. So
It's funny because I was actually in my junior year of high school when you guys flipped that switch. And I remember, like, I got in trouble so much in computer lab for being on Litter Mag and like watching the slideshows in computer class. And then, it switched and it was Vital. And I remember that day, everyone's like, all right, let's see what happens. And
that's awesome.
And then everything's all green now.
Yep. That's cool. Yeah. The first, I was at Crankworks, Colorado when it went live. And the first video we put up was Semenuk let us put probably a GoPro like that thing on his handlebars, and he did a run through the slopestyle course, and he did a bar spin. And I thought it was the coolest thing to watch the camera go back around. And I think that was the first video we put up, was Semenuk doing a run through the Crankworks Colorado slopestyle course.
And there's like no stabilization at that point.
Oh, no, it's terrible. Yeah. And like the sun's like a giant white dot blowing everything out. Yeah. So
wasn't, I'm not sure because this is like Brad's history a little bit, but wasn't there kind of a funny thing where he was on Trans World, and then they ended up selling that or kind of moving away from Trans World, and then they made him sign a do not compete for starting another magazine, but then there was no clause for website. So then he started Vital Media Network as a website.
That could totally be true. And I'm like, his reason for leaving all that was he doesn't see a huge future in print, especially with, Trans World being sold over and over again. Like, he saw the writing on the wall. So that's hilarious.
Yeah. My father figure, Dax, was best friends with Brad and Chico, and they went to school together. And yeah, I remember him telling me that story where they're like, yep, all right, here, we're going to make this sale. Do not compete with us on the print side. And he's like, okay, no problem.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So now it's 2009. Did you sell Litter Mag essentially, or just kind of partnered with Vital?
Everyone's like, whoa, did you sell it and get a ton of money? I'm like, no, there's no value. Like, there was value, but it's not like, yeah, bro, here's $1 million like for a website. No, Brad gave me the opportunity for a full-time job and a career, and, some other little things behind that. But that's all I wanted to do, was just do this for a living and keep it going and just have some stability, at least financially, and the means to have budget to create stuff. And that's what he gave me. And, here we are, 13 years later? So,
yeah. And at the end of the day, you could have potentially really held on and tried to get a lot of value out of it, maybe, but then you also could have been stuck working on it by yourself and having it just erode to nothing.
For sure.
And then Vital, if they really saw a huge opportunity, they could have just built their own and just copied you, which is the hard thing with intellectual property and creativity, right? It's like, you see that a lot today where Vital will do one thing, and then Pink Bike does it like a month or two later. And then Pink Bike will do one thing, and then you guys will do something similar.
For sure. That stuff gets frustrating, but kind of like I said, it's like, oh, Thrasher did that a month ago. We just put a mountain bike spin on it, so it kind of all goes around. But
yeah, they say there are no original ideas left.
That's right. Yeah, sure seems that way. But
what happens next? And then where do you go from there? And what kind of features did you implement into Vital that you didn't have in Litter Mag that made it so successful?
Yeah, for sure. So Litter Mag was just me making everything. Like, I think by the time it ended, I was able to do kind of a database driven website. Like, I'd figure that out. But there was no community element or anything like that. It was just kind of like a glorified blog, basically.
Were you having to code everything at that time too?
Yeah, I did everything myself, like graphics, coding, making sure stuff worked, like figuring out website hosting and yeah, all that. So with Vital, since they had MX and BMX and all that, they had a community platform in place too, you know, kind of Facebook style community, same as Pink Bike. And so that, and they also had which is still there, the product guide element to it, which is like, yeah, there's the editorial, the content side. It's kind of like the magazine fun stuff that you and I might like. But then there's a whole section that's product guide, which is, hey, here are all the bikes from 2013, their specs, their prices. You can compare them. You can see models, this and that. So that element to it. I'm basically still in charge of kind of the content, fun stuff. But the product guide is still there and, you know, brings in a lot of traffic too. So, but that's how enhanced it was. And at the time, you were either on a forum like Ride Monkey or MTBR. Pink Bike was out with their community, which to me, so ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. Like so long ago, they had a really good community thing where you could go like, hey, I can add my video here. I can add my photos. Like I can talk to people. Like those guys were on it. And it's pretty cool to see that they still exist. What they did like in the beginning for sure was just so ahead of the game. It's like they made Facebook before Facebook, you know? So I don't know, props to them. Like I want to put that out there that they've helped build a community in a way that made mountain biking big, I think. And so, and Vital had those elements too at the time, and we still do. And as we're recording this, we've had a big site update that we've been working on for a few months that went live yesterday, and there's some tech issues. And so they're working on that now. So I'd rather just kind of sit here and talk about stuff than worry about all that.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing to see how, at least in this demographic of, you know, downhill, free ride, and back then like slope style, dirt jump, all that kind of stuff. Yep. Pink Bike and Vital really did help cultivate and curate that culture. Yeah. And it's been super cool to see. But was there ever a point in time where you got pushback from Brad or the guys at Vital to try to widen the breadth of what you focused on content wise, like cross country and more of that side? Or was it just, hey, we're going to be this niche market of...
My boss is awesome. He doesn't really try to push his agenda on me too hard. He's given me so much freedom. And if I kind of look at things that, you know, I've tried and failed, like this idea is gonna be awesome and no one likes it, or this idea is not that cool and then it blows up. He just kind of lets me roll. Like he'll suggest that he likes cross country, and I've been watching, you know, World Cup cross country for a while now and really like it, but we don't have the bandwidth to kind of keep up with that at this point. You know, it's a matter of finding someone to do that. And, you know, I would like to have that stuff covered, but no, there's very rarely something that gets suggested, you know, like, hey, we got to do this, that I'm really bummed out on, mm-hmm. you know, or don't want to do. Like it's nice to just have, he's the owner, like he and I talk all the time and that's it, you know? So.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an idea of something that you thought was going to be super rad that failed miserably?
Oh, the biggest one, and everyone can go, you can look it up on the site if you want, but did this thing called Rad Libs instead of Mad Libs, where, okay, here's your interview question, but then you fill in the blanks, like give me a noun, give me an adjective, give me a verb, whatever. And I thought it would be so funny. And we did it with Luke Strobel, and I thought he did great. And it went on the site like, this is stupid. This is the dumbest thing ever. It just totally deflated me. And I'll go watch it and still laugh at it. But yeah, so that's the one that sticks out, is Rad Libs. I'm like, dude, the name's cool. The concept is fun. And maybe it would work today, but yeah, just didn't take off.
How do you, like, being a creative guy and trying to do stuff like that, how do you handle the pushback on some things like that? Like, has it ever hurt your feelings and been hard on you?
All the time. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, oh, I lose sleep. Other times, like, I just get super angry and type up some response and no, shouldn't do that. Just beat it. And it's literally within the last year, maybe 2 years, that stuff will still bother me for sure. Especially if it's, you know, if it's an ignorant comment, but it's hurtful. Like, okay, I know that's not true, but still bummed to see that on the site or, you know, in the comments. But, you know, after all these years, I'm finally understanding that Okay, that person might be having a bad day. I don't know their background and why they might be like, angry. And then also, guess what? In 2 days, no one's going to remember any of it. It's crazy how much of a treadmill it is. Like things that I've thought were going to be like, you know, game changers, life enders, whatever you want to call it. 2 days later, I don't remember. They don't remember. So it's kind of taking it all with a grain of salt. Like obviously having responsibility with what gets done, but it's the internet. Something is going to be cooler or worse tomorrow.
Do you have much of a difference in the community that you see, on your own platform with Vital MTB in the forum versus like your Facebook page versus your Instagram page? Is there differences there that you notice?
Yeah, I think so. With the Facebook audience, I'm not super engaged. Instagram, it seems like within the last year, like comments aren't there. Just kind of since it's going sort of like TikTok reel style, I think like engagement seems a little bit less outside of like buttons. So I'm not too fussed about over there. But I think YouTube specifically is where I kind of keep track. And I think that's where there's an active, engaging audience. And then obviously on the site. And on the site, it's mostly experienced kind of long-term bike riders on there that know a lot. And to the point, like it melts my brain, the stuff they see like that they'll find or that they'll call out. And that stuff used to bum me out. Like, oh, we missed this or I missed that. But now I'm like, it's awesome. We have a community like this because we can all work together and hey, go to the tech forum. And just because we didn't see it first or notice it, someone else over there did. And then there's like 5 other people going to talk about it. And that's awesome. I love that element of it. It doesn't solely fall on me or our staff or the contributors when we have this audience on the site that literally knows everything and they're everywhere.
Yeah. That actually brings me to one of my points I was going to try to make is there are a few people that I feel like have been huge contributors, such as like Stickman, from Troy Lee and Noah from MRP.
Totally.
Are there a few other key ones that you can think of that have made a huge contribution to the site? And have any of those people ever transitioned to working for you?
Yeah. Well, any staff we've ever had, well, until Jason. Way to blow it, Jason. Just kidding. But he's been on since 2011. But Brandon Turman, he crushed it for us for 10 years. He kind of redefined what a bike review's about, his expertise with tech stuff. He was a Grom in the forums, and I may have seen him on Ride Monkey too, but when we started, he was in there doing stuff and kind of working at like presenting himself. And, when we hired a first person, like more than me, he was the first guy we went to like, hey, let's do it. And
yeah, he crushed too. Like he was one of my other points I was going to make where what I wrote down was a consistent, incredible voice in the industry who gave awesome, unbiased reviews and insight from pro level riders.
For sure. And he shreds. Like,
yeah,
he can do a backflip on his bike and he murders it on the downhill. Like he's a great bike rider and he has engineering background. So yeah, he definitely elevated what we did.
Him and it's kind of funny because Vital has another guy like that on the moto side, Michael Lindsay. And I felt like Turman and Lindsay were like the two that I would always look to be like, all right, what is actually happening with this product or with this situation? And I was so bummed to see him go, but I'm glad that he's doing his thing now too.
Yeah, he's over at Crank Brothers doing cool stuff. So yeah, it was a bummer to see him go too, but also like we knew it was time and yeah, excited to see him move on.
And there's another guy that you guys collaborate with from Norway, all right? Or someone.
Yeah. Iceman.
Yeah. He's another one that I was going to write down too.
Yep. Johan Hjord. He actually lives in Israel. He's Swedish. Maybe he's half French too. I don't know. He speaks French. He's jack of all trades, kind of like a Euro guy. He's awesome. Yeah. And same thing. He was on the site in the comments in the forum. And yeah, he's been, like staff for 2011, 2012. I don't know, a long time. And yeah, it's awesome with guys like Brandon at the time and with guys like Johan that the longer they're in this game of reviewing stuff and, being around mountain biking, you can trust what they do as far as product reviews, if for only the fact that he's ridden 40 different kinds of pedals or 38 pairs of shoes and 20 different forks. Like he's been on everything. And so when he has input, you can take it and at least understand that like, all right, he's experienced all these different things and his like output should be valued.
Yeah, that was actually one thing that I wanted to ask too,
Yeah.
which is on that point, how do you balance keeping those strong relationships with brands, but also doing critical reviews? And has that ever been a weird subject, or has that ever gotten you guys in trouble, or have you had it blow up on you at times?
Not, it doesn't blow up a ton. And
Because I know Pink Bike gets a lot of criticism for that, where they basically will like, yesterday there was a review on a wheel set and they basically said, oh, there's this one issue, and they kind of glossed over it. And then in the comments, it just was like, boom, boom, boom. And a few people commented and said, I feel like Pink Bike now will basically do the review and they'll mention something, but kind of like soften it and then hope that the comments will actually drill the point of what needs to change.
That's
and
interesting.
So they kind of, some of the people in the comments feel like they're relying on the comments to actually pick out the critical points and then elaborate on them. But I know it's really tough because, you know, when you have some of those brands pay, you know, $100,000 a year to support the site, and then how do you write a review and be like, they really missed the mark on this one? Or
for sure.
and a lot of that stuff happens kind of behind closed doors, it seems like, where if there is a big issue, they might talk about it and pull the review, which is maybe not a negative thing, but how do you balance that?
We've never been paid for a review. Like, hey, Vital, we'll work with you as long as you just review our bike. Like, there's always some kind of other element in there. So it's never like, hey, we'll give you 10 grand to review our bike. If that happened, I would feel like, how can I give this bike a bad review if it's not good or product or whatever? And so thankfully we're not in that boat. And the sales and ad side of things, that's a relationship that, you know, Todd takes care of, Kyler takes care of. Like, we'll talk once in a while, but we have a bit of distance between there. And if we're going to review a product and it's crappy and we say it's awesome, why is anyone going to want to trust us again? And so thankfully with guys like Brandon, he established credibility, guys like Johan, and with our reviewers. And so there's the one time I remember a brand not being psyched was they did a test session like 2012 or 2013, maybe 2014. And there was a Jameis in it and they gave it 2 stars. And James was super bummed. And I think they pulled ads. I don't remember, but we don't get into that too much because, one, everything's pretty darn good. And if something stinks, like, they're going to call it out. I wish we had the leverage that Pink Bike does to just kind of like open the floodgates and let the comments go. But as you know, like, we don't have a ton of comments on the site. So we've got to call it out if it needs to be called out. And also too, there's time involved with reviews, and not every product gets a full year on it to see everything kind of explode or detonate or what a problem might be. So
That is a huge problem. Because
some writer might have a lot more experience on the product than what a reviewer can get. And that's kind of just the nature of what it is, you know, like what we have to do. And so we do our best to make sure it gets smashed up pretty good and see anything that can, you know, be pulled out if necessary.
Yeah, it's hard because, I mean, theoretically, to do a really just honest, dialed, perfect review, you would need to have the product for at least a year.
I agree.
But then at that point, the new bike's coming out.
For sure. So yeah, keeping up with it is
Yeah.
super tough. But thankfully now it seems like everything is so freaking good.
Yeah, it's either a 4 or 5 star, pretty much always.
Kind of. Yeah. And the components are so consistent and strong, unless there's like some real outlier technology or component, that the critiques are generally going to be about like sizing or noise or like, you know, minor issues like that. It's, you know, and if something is terrible, we're going to call it out. It's hard to find something that's not that good these days, you know?
Mm-hmm. Is there, kind of going back to that point of the product cycle, is there something in the industry that you would like to see change in regards to, you know, something like the product cycle or how things are released or embargo dates? Or is there something that would be cool to see the industry move away from or move towards in your eyes?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think the pandemic kind of shuffled stuff around to the point of where it used to be there are plenty of bikes to be tested to get them early. And then the pandemic hit and like, yeah, we don't have anything to test. We've sold everything. But I think that's about to change to some degree. It sounds like there's some excess in inventory and things will be available again. But it's a different time now where kind of the magazine model that trickled in until, say, 2019 was, okay, Niner knows they have a bike coming out in October. So they get all the media guys together to go ride it in August. And then you have an embargo and everyone launches together. You have a media camp. That stuff went away with COVID, obviously. And I'm not a huge fan of that that formula because one, you're with the brand. Of course, the bike is going to be sick because you're with their product guys, you're with the engineers, you're with the techs to make sure everything's running perfectly. And I think it's fair to say you could kind of get swept up in like, this was a sick vacation and we rode awesome trails. Like, why wouldn't this bike be sweet? And so I was glad to see that go away with COVID, it's starting to come back a little bit. And what Vital does as best possible is to get the bikes in house and let us test it without someone from Niner looking over our shoulder or whatever. I think they're pros in that situation too, though, because a rider like Brandon or now Jason, like they would have honest discussions with product managers and say like, this stem is terrible. Why would you put a 70 mil stem on this? Or this feature is lame. Like they would have those discussions.
Yeah, I see that a lot with suspension design where, some of the bike brands, if they have a demographic that's usually more like fitness oriented, then they'll go with a more linear leverage curve, which basically makes the shock use its travel more freely. And so people can hit smaller bumps and use more of the travel and have a more comfortable ride. But then if you put like a pro rider on that, they're just bottoming out all the time. And
sure.
So then you kind of could have that conversation, be like, hey, the spec is not good. And then they always come back with, well, you're not the target demographic.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you're right. But
and I don't envy bike brands, suspension brands at all for that reason. Like everyone is so different. The way I ride, the way you ride, like my legs are short, your legs might be long. Like the stuff they have to deal with to make a bike good for everyone. I don't see how that's possible to some degree, Yeah.
I think that's part of the whole thought process behind like the electronic suspension. I think there is a portion of that that's definitely being catered towards performance. And, hey, we're going to set it up for this track. And when you hit this GPS point, your shock will lock or unlock, or that is already happening in some capacity. But I think a lot of it in the future is like, get on this bike, ride it for 10 minutes, and it's going to auto adjust and let the air pressures out. And, you could even potentially have like a electronic expanding volume spacer that is like, oh, you're bottoming out too much. Let's have this, so that's, that's what happens in car suspension a lot is, the different ride modes, and you could essentially say, I want sport mode today and I weigh this much, and it's
yeah. Does that excite you?
I don't know. It's kind of like this term gets people really mad, but like acoustic guitar versus electric guitar.
Sure.
But it's like or analog versus digital or whatever. Yeah. But I think that there is something to be said for the experience of like metal cable and not having everything be so electronic. And, I mean, I've experimented with wireless shifting and stuff several times. And I mean, I've gotten stranded twice from things dying. And I was like, dude, that wouldn't happen. And me trying to get this one little bit of coolness factor kind of like just made me have to deal with one gear the rest of this ride. So I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I run Access right now, but it's because I'm lucky enough to have it sent to me, because I've been in the industry long enough that like I have friends that'll send stuff along, but not trying to change the subject too hard, but I guess it's the same thing. But the cost of everything is bonkers. And you start putting technology like that into what we're doing. Is it just going to cause this rift of like the cheap versus expensive and the accessible versus unaccessible? Like,
yeah, I will say though, like, companies like Marin and some of the other ones, they offer such a good $1,500 to $2,000 or $2,500 bike.
For sure.
That wasn't really available in the past, but yeah, I guess, with your question of, does that excite me personally? I think maybe as I get older, I'll have something that's more electronic and just to make it easier for not thinking about it. Like if you have limited time, you're like, I don't want to know if my suspension is, or, I don't want to think if it's off. I just want to hop on the bike and ride. But for the accessibility of the sport, I think it does excite me a lot because I can't tell you how many times I've been out on the trail and you come across someone who's like picking themselves up, from being all dirty and crashing, and you're like, oh, okay, help them get their bike set up, or, pick it up, and you push on the fork. You're like, dude, what the?
Yeah.
Or the tires like has 5 PSI in it. You're like,
or 50.
or 50. So I think there is that component that does excite me, where someone who knows nothing about a bicycle can just grab a bike and then it'll just figure it out and make it safe to ride.
Yeah.
And that's been interesting. Like with April learning to ride mountain bikes more. I mean, I got her to get like a spreadsheet going with all her tire pressures for the bike so that she knows, if I'm not in town, like, and you want to go ride the dirt jumper, like put this much pressure in the front and rear. But I mean, it'd be cool if you had just an app that you got on the bike and it's like, ding, ding, ding. Hey, your tire pressure is low. Maybe at least from a safety standpoint, but I don't know. There's always pros and cons to everything, right?
Yeah. I'm such a non-fiddler. I set up my stuff and go ride. Like I'll mess with tire pressure, but yeah, I don't know. I see both sides, and that's why I have, you know, good reviewers that like to twist knobs and do stuff. And like, I'm not the guy responsible for that, but there's something about simplicity in the bike as much as possible, keeping it
Yeah, it's like a
not
fishing reel.
complicated.
You know, it's like it's at some point when you have a bike that's so, you know, like a rigid single speed or something.
Yeah, I'm
Like
not
there's
that
a,
simple.
I know, but there is a beauty in that in a
For sure.
sense where you see guys that go backpacking a lot and they'll have like, you know, maybe several gears or something, but they'll have like rigid bike pack racks and all that. You're like, why do you have that setup? Well, it doesn't break,
Yeah, for sure.
you know?
And I think that's cool. Yeah. And this past year, basically from like October on, I decided I'm just going to ride the same bike all the time. Whereas we used to get all the bikes through and like people would test them, but I'd get to ride them too. And I'd be on a different bike like every 2 weeks. And of course, this bike is the best. No, this is the best. No, this is the best. And I'm like, okay, just slow down, just ride the same thing. And I'm riding a 27.5 5010 front and rear. And I've been riding it since October, and I'm having more fun on my bike than I've ever had. And I think part of that's just the consistency and the comfort on the same bike. And for Boise, you know, it's a small bike, and so that works here. You couldn't take it to Whistler and have a great time for a whole year, but I think there's something to be said for that too, with new technology or product cycles or this trend or that trend. It's like staying on the same bike has been pretty darn fun for me. And I feel like my riding has improved because of it. And I look at someone like Loic Bruni, who just won world champs again. He's been on the same bike for a long time. Like his changes are minimal. And there's this balance of, hey, you run a website where it's, you want to talk about the newest, the greatest, the coolest. But personally, I'm like, well, a bike that hasn't changed for, you know, it's 2 years now for me has been awesome, you know, and you don't need the newest and coolest or go into debt to ride a bike to have fun. So that's the cool thing about mountain bikes, I guess, is you can have all of it. You can have a 10-year-old clapper and have just as much fun as the person on a $20,000, you know, super e-bike. So
For sure. And I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, with the pandemic and all the bikes that came into the market. And then now you're seeing the used bike market just blow up. Like there's a ton of used bikes. So one cool thing is that the barrier for entry is like coming down a little bit, you know, and I have a lot of friends that are now wanting to get in biking and they can get a pretty decent used bike for $3,000 or 3,500, which is still a lot. But the cool thing is if you ride it for a year or two, you could probably sell it for 2,800. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
On that technology standpoint,
Okay.
how much has the acceptance of e-bike content changed in the last couple of years? And were you guys getting any pushback when you started to share e-bike stuff, or do you get pushback?
Yeah, they're still the outliers that are just, e-bikes are the devil, and you know they're trying to take our trails and sneak in and blah blah blah. But when we did our first e-bike test, we did a test session here and rode the trails not too far away up in Idaho City and stuff. But none of us had ridden e-bikes very much, if at all, before that test, and so we wanted to do it properly and at least go in like, okay, we're doing our homework, and this is Brandon organizing it. Brad Howell's on there. And so we did that test, and when it was done well, it was thorough, and it was accepted because it was done in a quality way, at least. But yeah, there was tons of flack about it. But since then, we're like, we know e-bikes are going to be a thing. We've got to be involved with them somehow. We want to have experts who know the technology and see how the bikes ride. And so that's when we kicked off. And since then, if the opportunity is there to test something, we will. Again, there's still the haters, but I think a lot of people, if they hate them, they probably just ignore the content, which is all I do. Like, I'm like, why would you go in and just talk a bunch of junk about it that everyone's heard? But I understand if you don't like them too, that's fine. So,
yeah. I think it's interesting that Pink Bike set up a filter, you know, so you can filter e-bike content out.
Yeah, we talked about that in the beginning, but at the same time, we're like, we don't put out that much content to where it's going to make a huge difference. And again, if you don't want to see it, don't click on it, you know? So
yeah, it's super interesting. We battle that quite a bit on our YouTube channel, trying to figure out just how to approach the subject. And one thing we've learned over the last year or two is that negativity breeds negativity.
Yeah.
And so you'll see, like, you could have 100 comments and 99 of them are positive, and then one comment comes in that's negative, and then the next 5 comments will be negative.
Just dog piles, yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, man, it's crazy how much it builds on itself. And that's kind of like human nature. I feel like if you're around someone negative, you feel more negative. You're around someone positive, you feel more positive. And it's tough. Like it's been tough. And I know for me, there was a point where I was just kind of like, man, I'm tired of going on to these websites that are supposed to be an escape and then having it be, you know, just negativity. And so it is tough to see that. And I wish people could just, I understand a lot of the concerns, but I wish people could respect the people that do enjoy it or that helps them get them out. And I think one misconception too is that everyone rides on turbo mode all the time, going a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. It's not always like that. And
I do.
yeah, Spomer does. But yeah, we did a 5-hour ride the other day and it was on eco, pretty much eco or tour the whole time. We did 7,500 feet climbing and it was a gnarly day, but it was like, I couldn't have done that without the e-bike, especially
for sure
getting back this past year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they have their place and I think they're super fun and they can be fun on a regular bike trail, or you can go to Idaho City and do stuff you'd never do on a mountain bike. Like, I think it seems like the hate started because they kind of came out too early or they weren't refined enough, you know, thinking about like, oh, here's a mountain bike with a giant battery strapped to the down tube, like physically strapped to the down tube and a motor wedged in there. And it was easy to hate on them because they're so kooky looking, but they're so refined now and they perform so well. Like, why? If you don't want to do it, ride your pedal bike. That's fine too. So,
Yeah.
But I understand too the slippery slope of allowing something with a motor on a non-motorized trail. So I see both sides for sure.
Yeah. I was hoping that with Specialized introducing the Levo SL a few years ago, I was kind of hoping that would maybe create a new classification of e-bike that would maybe be more accessible on that style of trail. But I don't know. It's so complicated. And at the end of the day, it's like the few ruin it for the many. So there's like a few people that are kind of bad etiquette or, you know, I think there's an etiquette issue in mountain biking period.
For sure.
Whether it's normal or non.
Yep.
But yeah, it's tough. It's almost like it'd be great if there was a certification class or just like something that was offered by the industry to say, hey, you just got a new bike. Here's this cool website you can go on. Here's how, you know, if there's someone climbing up the trail, usually they have the right of way. If you see a hiker, say on your left or on your right, or, you know, don't do it like right when you're on them, try to give them a heads up.
Yep.
And I don't know. There's a lot of that stuff that gets exacerbated when you add speed. And I think, you know, if you're not sure what to do and then you add 5 miles an hour speed, it can be more of an issue, but
And I kind of think in reality, the amount of like conflict, if you want to call it that, is pretty darn small. But if it happens once and you put it in the right place, it can blow up and turn into a wildfire, you know? So it's online versus reality might be two different things. But the amount the bikes have changed in such a short time, like what's 3 years going to look like? Is every e-bike going to be a lightweight e-bike that you can't tell apart from a regular mountain bike? Like that stuff's nuts to me.
that was one thing that I thought a couple years ago is that at a certain point, it's going to be every bike will, or not every bike, but a lot of the bikes will be offered as an e-bike, like the transition that you can then pull the motor out.
Yeah.
And then it's a normal bike. And so then you could basically purchase one bike and have both options, which I don't know, sometimes modularities, you know, you're basically optimizing for neither.
For sure.
But I don't know. It would be interesting if you could buy an e-bike / normal bike for $4,000, or you buy just a normal bike for 3,200. But then you have the added flexibility. What's going to grow the market? But then I guess the biggest pushback people have at the end of the day is that the industry is growing and the market's growing and there's more people on the trails and more issue. But I hope that will eventually lead to more trails and better design. And even out here in Boise, a lot of the foothill trails, like there is conflict when it's two-way direction. But then if you just put someone at Eagle Bike Park, like there's no conflict.
For sure. Yeah. It's kind of a purpose-built place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Another question for you. Can you please bring back the slideshows?
No, it's so funny when we stop doing them, just people still say that. And I understand why you like them. I understand why
The music.
A real good run.
very small core audience that likes slideshows, very small. Let me reiterate. I understand why you guys like them.
Like a couple thousand people maybe or less?
Yeah. Maybe take a 0 off of that.
Like a couple hundred people?
Like it was, that's why I went to Brad to ask about Vitals. Like, hey, I'm doing slideshows. You guys are too. Let's do it. I even I'll put this out there in 2011, maybe Mike Ferrantino was at Santa Cruz and he offered me a job to go to Santa Cruz. And I went and talked to Brad about it. And basically it came down to the fact of like, Brad didn't want to do slideshows anymore. He wanted, like, we were doing some kind of update and he's like, do we need to rebuild the slideshow player? Cause I think it was Flash back then. And maybe I said like, we got to get it out of Flash. And I was like, will you please, if you get it out of Flash, keep the slideshow player, like update it. Like then I'll stay and do this, which is crazy to think about now. But
You're like, I'm going to build my life around this slideshow.
I know, but that's how into him we were at the time. And it was a relevant form of like content delivery at the time. But just over the years, they take too much time to go through for most people, not for people like you and people like me. If I saw one, I'd be into it. But just for the time I have, the time people have at the races, like the tech on the back end versus the views, like it's just not worth it, which sucks. But it's also understandable because you can see all those photos on Instagram in 5 seconds. The interviews, I think, are what people miss the most, more so than the format to some degree, because the interviews were great. The stuff that Sven would do and Boris and Dan and all them. And that's some of the stuff I miss. And we played with like putting interviews and like results posts and things like that. And they get listened to.
That'd be cool.
We crammed them into like let's say they got 10 interviews at a race. We put them onto our podcast channel, just kind of back to back to back, which is pretty good. But sorry, we're not bringing slideshows back. We talked about, hey, mate, turn it into a video. But that production just takes too long. And if you have a 6-minute audio clip, what are you going to have? The same photo for 6 minutes? Like, it just didn't make sense, you know?
I think one of the ways I consumed it a lot was like multi-tab browsing. And so I'd have the slideshow. Yeah. I'd click on it. I'd look at the photo. I'm like, oh, that's rad. And then I'd go back to the other thing I was doing.
While the audio plays.
For
sure.
So yeah, that is tough. But yeah, that was such an iconic thing for so long.
Yeah,
one day you'll have to do just a little one,
okay.
like 4 slides or something just for us.
That sounds good.
Okay. On that note, what has been your proudest piece of work over your career? Is there something that you just really were just so proud that you were able to execute it? Or is it kind of this whole thing as a whole?
I think it's the all-encompassing thing that Vital is, and just the opportunity I've been given to kind of make whatever I want or find people to make whatever they want that are excited about what they do. It's really fun doing the inside line, like kind of watching that take off and getting to know people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to know in that capacity. And Vital Raw, like just that stuff. That's how I filmed back in the day. It was just kind of a bunch of raw clips and just delivering that excitement almost instantly it always gives me chills. I'm always so excited when it's a World Cup race weekend and Lawler's like uploading now. And I just get so amped because I just want to see it. I just want to watch it. And then to be like, I'm the first one to see this, you know, besides John, obviously, but yeah, that excitement's still there for me. So I don't know, things like that. And just, I don't know, kind of what we built in our little voice and in our pocket of the industry, I guess.
Yeah. On the achievements of Vital, one of the things I said was the Inside Line podcast, one of the first large scale mountain bike podcasts, I would say.
Yeah.
Because there were a few other ones, but at least in the downhill space, I feel like you guys really were kind of one of the forefront ones.
Yep.
And also Vital Raw, which is basically raw race coverage with rapid turnaround time, which makes you feel like you're there.
Yeah. And one of the not big complaints, but on YouTube, it's either the whistles drive me crazy, which is hilarious. That one's pretty fun. But just like, where are the rider names? And like, that would take an extra 2 hours. It opens up time for opens up possibility for errors like spelling and mislabeling riders. And so we just don't put the names on there. Like John films, he runs home, cuts it up, and we put it up as fast as we can because like, we want to see race action. Let's go.
What you should maybe do is pin a comment at the top that says, if you can identify the riders, like put the timestamp below, and then they could community source it. And then you could just copy and paste it, add it to the video, and then it'd be in the chapter of every.
Yeah.
It would segment it, you know?
That's happened a little bit. And then there was some blowback about like, oh, you guys are too lazy to do it yourself. So just race weekends are so busy. I'm just glad to get raw put up and let people enjoy it and keep going. So
one of the other things that I put on here as like a Vital kind of achievement was the team rumors.
Yeah.
For people that don't know what that is, basically there's a little subsection of the forum that kind of popped off a few, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And there's team rumors, and there's someone from the inside of the industry who at the end of the downhill World Cup season would be like, hey, so-and-so's maybe moving here. And they would draw these little, you can take it from there, but
Yeah, well, they put the cartoons, and I want to say at that time they put them on Twitter. And so we just kind of grabbed onto it. And I know who some of the people are behind it, but
yeah, it'd be like
yeah, then
hinting at what was going to happen, but it'd be,
with like riddles. Yeah. And yeah, that just kind of took off in the forum, and everyone just, from the end of summer through January 1st, basically when deals could be announced, people are just guessing who's going where and what's happening. And now we have it started out as the Tech Rumor forum, and that thing's blown up. I think it's almost at 2 million views right now, but that's where everyone finds spy shots and just puts stuff up and talks about this product or that product. And so that's a fun one to watch and keep an eye on too.
Have either of those ever gotten you guys in trouble at all?
Yeah, once in a while we'll get a call like, hey, we saw this, can you take it down? And if it's something we know shouldn't have been leaked, and someone was a jerk by leaking something, we'll respect that.
Like from a dealer book or something?
Yeah. And if it depends on the severity. Like we've done it a couple times, but we've had a handful where it's like a bike was seen at a race. Yo, can you take this down? Like, no, you have this thing out in public. Like, it's not our fault you got it, leaked out there. And, since those times, I think the brands in the industry are pretty savvy with how to sort of milk it. Like you've seen Finn on his World Cup bike wrapped up for a whole year and letting certain things out, here and there, like, hey, put this on your stories and make sure you show that little bit, but don't say what it is. Like it's kind of part of the fun now,
That's cool.
Yeah. But I think anything super sensitive doesn't really get leaked. People are pretty cautious these days.
I think it's interesting from the brand perspective, because I would always ask them like, why don't you guys want the attention? Because I feel like sometimes when something leaks, it's pretty cool. And like for me as a consumer, especially when I was younger, I was like, oh, those look so sick. Like those pedals are so rad. I'm going to wait and try to get those. But then I asked one of the product managers, and their reasoning was, well, if someone was about to purchase our bike and then they saw that a new version's coming out, then they'll wait to purchase the new one. But then it's like, how bummed are you when you buy like a GoPro 9 and then the 10 drops a week later? You're just like,
for sure.
So they're trying to like milk the double purchase maybe a little bit, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like,
I think it's a tricky spot for a brand to be in, and I see both sides. Like if, here's the current Niner, and next week the new Niner is going to be announced. Well, if I bought the current one, like, how is the brand supposed to ever make sure everyone's happy that way? But I could see the downside of the hype of a prototype or like coming soon kind of thing. But I don't know. Like they have to sell bikes for an industry to exist. I have no idea what numbers look like, but would that mean 5 people wouldn't buy the current one and wait 2 months? Does that mean 1,000? Like, I don't know how many it is. So I don't know. I'm not in their shoes and don't know, but I just want to see cool stuff early if you can.
That's funny. Okay. And I had a couple other questions too.
Sure.
5 to 7 years ago, it seemed like riders and companies would basically create content, and then they would, or a product, and they would basically package it, send it to you guys, and then they would rely on you to basically share to the audience. And nowadays it seems like both riders and brands are building their own audience and then trying to distribute directly. How has that changed your guys' business model or the interaction with the brands and riders? Because I know it could probably be kind of tricky when you have athletes who are promoting their own channel, similar to like what we're doing here. Like we're not necessarily a competitor, but it's competing for attention or view. So how do you manage that, or how has that changed Vital's interaction?
Yeah, thankfully since the beginning, and even with Litter Mag, I was aggregating content. Like, oh, Yeti put out their videos, Santa Cruz did, Niner did, whatever. I would put them all on the site. That's what Vital is too. And there have been these growing pains or maybe kind of issues of like FOMO of, seeing you put out the first look at a new Niner or something. I'm like, why didn't we get to do that too? And that's there, but we're still in this place where we're not beholden to one specific brand or style of riding or athlete. We can put everything out there. And so in some way, there's just more content for us to try to share across the community and put in one place. And that can be difficult because, we're curating like, hey, is this cooler than that? What do we have time to put in? Like we can't put in all 100 videos that went up today, for instance. So we have to be selective, which is good and bad. But
I think it's cool that you do share stuff though. Like, I mean, you've shared some of our stuff before, and you've shared like Camacall's stuff before, and
yeah.
other athletes that are basically building their own audience as well. But it is tricky because like, you share, I think one time you shared one of our things and someone on the site was like, who's that? You know, and it's like, but at the end of the day, totally understandable because like our primary audience on our YouTube channel is 40 plus. That's our biggest demographic. And then I'm not sure if what you guys have is your biggest demo, but it's like you're trying to figure out who is your audience and how does this content fit into that space, and then how does that brand fit in the space. So
And it kind of varies. Sometimes it's a matter of myself or staff scrubbing YouTube and being like, whoa, that's rad. Let's put it on. I don't care who it is, what it is. Other times, like brands will say, hey, we have this press release. Can you put it out? Sure. We have this riding video of our rider. Can you put it out? Of course. So there's just a variety of different ways to get things. And it's tricky too, because of how like YouTube works, for instance. Maybe YouTube put out a video and it didn't show up in my feed for 2 days. I'm like, oh, we're off the back on that. Like there's kind of no point now. And so there are battles that way to keep on top of certain things. Like,
yeah, I know like Pink Bike for a long time, up until fairly recently, like a couple years ago, they wouldn't host anything that was from YouTube. They would only host native videos that were uploaded to their video player. So like, you know, essentially, yeah, on a lot of the content. So like if a brand had a press release, so say Niner made a video, they distribute it to you guys through their YouTube channel. Like they post it on YouTube, they give the link to you guys post that.
Yeah.
They would also make Niner upload that on Pink Bike to the Pink Bike video player.
Yeah. Yep.
And then that way, essentially, like if someone clicks the wrong part of the video, it can take them off of Vital. And so then you get basically someone leaving, and Pink Bike wanted to keep that.
Yep.
So it's been interesting now to see, I mean, almost everything now links to YouTube.
How can it not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's where everyone goes to watch something. So yeah, we've embraced that a long time ago. And we still have our own video player, and probably until 2015 or 16, that's all we'd use. But then we just started putting all our videos on YouTube instead. And like, yeah, why not? There's such a massive audience to try and keep them contained on our site, let alone have them find our site. Yeah. What's the point of that?
Yeah. So that was one thing I was kind of curious about.
Yeah.
Because I see it, and it is funny too, because you know how we talked about how sometimes like you guys will introduce a feature and then Pink Bike will copy it, or vice versa. I see that a lot now, where a creator will come up with a concept, like an athlete or rider or whatever, and then like a GMBN or another bigger thing will copy it. You're just like, oh, I feel your pain a little bit in some capacity.
You and I have talked about that. Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff that you two have done show up other places with different people. So yeah, but
at the end of the day, it's all cool because it's reaching this bigger audience, which is people that want a mountain bike. And at the end of the day, like that's all we as an industry should kind of care about is, for one, how do you get more people to find it and care about it and have it be a part of their life and hopefully give them a better life.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the magazine days, or like VHS days, there were only a handful of things you could see as a bike rider within a year. 60 magazines total, whatever, maybe 5 VHS videos. And you'd memorize them. You'd learn everything about them, watch them 1,000 times. And now you and April do a how to bunny hop video and it goes off, but then 30 other people do a how to bunny hop video. Like, I wish there was a way that your how to bunny hop video, for instance, was the how to bunny hop video that got made this year. And that's where everyone goes. There's no reason for me to try to make one so I can make an extra 50 cents, or for that vlogger to make it too. Like, I wish there was a way to make it so content wasn't so diluted to some point, you know? Like, that's never happening, but
I think the YouTube algorithm does a pretty good job though, for the most part, because essentially all YouTube is they look at how often someone clicks on the video. And then when they do click on it, how long do they stay?
For sure.
And if those two things are good, then that video gets surfaced. So theoretically, if we did a better job of making a video like a how to bunny hop or how to wheelie or how to whatever, then theoretically, anytime someone searches that, that will be the gold standard. And then they may also have other ones that you could basically reaffirm that that's correct information. I know that was one thing that people were upset about with the dislike button being removed.
Yeah.
Is now that there's no dislike button, you could have a video that gets 1 million views, 10,000 likes, but it would have got 30,000 dislikes. And then you might not know, like, hey, this is poor information.
Yeah.
And so there's been a few people that have done like not in the bike space, but in other tech space where it's like, oh, do this to your hard drive to do this, but it actually like breaks the hard drive. And it's a way to like kind of
Yeah,
mess
void
people
your
up.
warranty or whatever.
Yeah, it's like those old memes where it's like, don't forget to fill up your blinker fluid this year, like that kind of thing. So now that the dislike button is gone, it's harder to just be like, oh, I can't trust this content. And so I don't know, it is tough. I think for us, we're just so grateful to have the opportunity to make content and have it be viewed and shared. And then I don't know, it's been cool because like we're not the first to do any of the videos we've done either. So we've copied ideas in a sense, but I guess the best content is always coming from the heart or from the person's brain, like the creator's brain. So, I mean, we'll sit down and be like, what's the best way to communicate this? And then someone else will have a completely different thing, but that could totally reach someone else. So that's how I feel with the websites too. Like Vital, I feel like I go to Vital for a certain experience and it almost makes me feel like I'm a kid again. Like I just feel like my Grom days. And I'm like, yeah, this is so rad. And then
awesome.
like I'll scan Pink Bike now, and it's definitely changed a bit the past, year and a half or 2 years since it got purchased. I feel like there's a lot less just like meat content there. Whereas I really like going through and reading a lot of like how things are made or, behind the scenes of a brand or company or, looking at the manufacturing process. But I feel like a lot of that's kind of gone away and now it's more, here's 10 bike checks from the World Cup or here's this or that. And so if I wanted to see that, I could just browse YouTube.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a tricky.
Where do you think like your role is in the future for a website like a Vital or Pink Bike?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what websites do in 10 years, in 5 years kind of thing. And it's a tricky battle, like talking about the kind of the content that's presented. It's like slideshows, for instance. I love those. There's meat, there's emotion to it all. And it's presenting things you'd never get to see. But when no one's looking at it, how do you pay for it? How do you pay to create it to some degree? I'm not saying it's all about money necessarily, but I'm not sure if it's because of, phones and social media, but things have to be pretty quickly digestible for the most part, or they have to be really informative. Like
you have to get major
like,
views.
Yeah. Like on site, like if it's informative, it does well if it presents information. And like I said, we have our product guide and that's strictly information and people go there. And I think that's a big role for websites still. When you're on Instagram, you're just cruising through. You're not getting information. You're just kind of being entertained for the most part. And I think we have to kind of strike that balance of like presenting things that are fun to watch, exciting to watch, for instance, but also presenting information that's accurate and helpful. So
Eric Carter had a good point one time. We were at a Marin sales meeting and they were talking about social media and he sits in the back and he like raises his hand. Everyone's like, oh no, what's this going to be? And he's like, excuse me, how many likes equal a sale?
I've often wondered that. Yeah.
And, that's one thing like with the Vital slideshow, even if it got just, for example, say it got 1,000 views, the impact of those 1,000 people that viewed that, those are like the Clay Porters and the Alex Rankins and people that are in the industry creating content and being inspired. So it's like that may only get 1,000 views, but the impact that has is so wide. And we battle with that a little bit too. Like we did a video a year ago or something that was like, how to install CushCore. That's such a niche video, but it got 30,000 views and that maybe there's like a 5,000 or 10,000 people that bought a CushCore that got helped by that. And so it's just interesting, instead of doing like just something that's more like riding Ray's mountain bike park, that got a ton of views, but then it didn't get a lot of subscribership or conversion because it didn't make that big of an impact. It was more of just entertainment.
Yeah.
So it is hard to balance that, right?
It is. And it's always going to be. And I'm sure it was back in the day too. Like Mountain Bike Action magazine still exists. And why? Because it's pure information. And like, say what you want about it, but people that don't know a lot about mountain biking will pick up a Mountain Bike Action and learn a ton of things. They weren't Bike Mag or Dirt doing the soulful kind of feel good, awesome imagery kind of things. Like those were small markets and they're gone, So it's tough. Yeah, I don't know, like to find that balance. But thankfully we have a big enough platform between our site, YouTube, Instagram, all that we can kind of do everything. Lesser viewed, but more impactful features that make us feel good, make the community feel good, even if they didn't get 1 billion views,
I hope that the conversion eventually will get a little bit easier to track because, for example, if you guys were to do a really, really, really in-depth story on how a certain component was made and that converted well and sold a lot of that product, then even if it maybe got, 500 views, but it sold 50 products, then that's a really high conversion ratio. Right. And so I hope that that'll get tracked better. And then maybe the brands will be more willing to like support the content that is smaller and more niche. And I feel like, working with Niner has been really cool because they are really good about that, where they go, it doesn't really matter how many views this gets. Like, we just know that the people that are going to consume it really appreciate it. Yep. And so it's like, that's really important
and
too.
I think we have a lot of brands that work with us for the same reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. They appreciate what we've done and want to be involved. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Another good question, hopefully, or not a good question, but hopefully. In 2014, 15, and 16, it seemed like the EWS coverage on websites like Vital and Pink Bike was just like so broad and deep and thorough. Yep. And you had multiple photographers at every event. You had the Curtis Keene on-track episodes happening with Red Bull. Nowadays, it seems like, just from my perspective, it seems like it's gotten lesser coverage as far as like, you don't feel necessarily like you're there at the race. One of the things that I was kind of trying to figure out is, why do you think that has happened? And is a part of it that the days have gotten so big and the course is so wide that it's been harder to cover it? Like, is it harder for a photographer to get from this mountain range to this mountain range, when in the past, like, the days were 4-ish hours in 2014, 15. And then now it's like 7-8 hours a day. So
it's a good question. The reason we covered EWS so well was because Sven was involved and Boris was involved, and they're still at a lot of those races doing their same coverage. But a couple of years ago, it was kind of the return on interest, like the investment in time and in money versus the interest on the site. I'm like, if people don't care about this, we've got to put our time into other things. And so that's kind of why we throttled back on it.
Yeah, there's a forum thing right now that's called like, is EWS dead?
Yeah.
And it was interesting reading through that, because there's a lot of industry insiders that are talking about it. And it's so tough, because like you see Jack Moore and all the things he's doing with like Moi Moi TV and all that. And that is, in a lot of cases, you'll see people comment like, this is the number one source for EWS coverage, is this one athlete who's also racing at a top 5 level. Like, he's having to promote the series itself. So what do you think that they could do better or differently?
I just think the nature of the format of enduro racing is just tough to cover. And you have to be a fan to be interested in all the details of it. Multiple stages, like venue names that you've never heard of in a foreign language. If you're from the US, like, you have to be really absorbed kind of into the sport to follow it and care about it. That's what I think. Our results posts always do well. Like, and again, that's kind of news and information, a good thing with a website. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they kind of started all looking the same after a while too. It's like, here's another epic race with the Matterhorn in the background. Like, we're back in Italy. Like, does it just kind of blend together? And
that's a good point.
How do you have time to be concerned with 7 races in a weekend instead of just one, just with all the stages and stuff? And yeah, like what Jack is doing, super sick. What Bernard's doing, like on the World Cup, like, I don't see how those guys pull it off, making their own content and being competitive. And Jesse Melamed too, to some degree, like, he's putting stuff out. Like, those guys are gnarly, and I'll go straight there to see what's happening. And so I don't know if it's
same.
I think the format is tough. Like, if you think about World Rally on TV, like with cars, probably not a big audience, but NASCAR, Indy, like, oh, it's contained, it's easy, you kind of understand what's going on. You don't have to be involved in a multi-day process.
Yeah.
And then also the way people kind of consume or expect content might be different. Like Jack's videos and Bernard's videos, they're easy to watch. I know exactly what I'm going to get.
And you're following one person essentially.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yep. And it doesn't feel hyper produced, which maybe turns people off. Like, I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah. It'll be interesting with Discovery coming in.
Yeah. I'm so curious to see what happens. I've been fairly vocal on the site about it. But,
yeah.
And that's just with little things I've heard in the
Your
background.
Your tongue's bleeding right now.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But I just love downhill so much. It's in such a great place right now, just because Red Bull made it free for everyone to watch. I just hope.
Yeah, like Leger, the crowd was insane. Yeah. And the energy, and it was kind of funny. It was like a little anticlimactic because Loic just crushed everyone first, and then you're like, oh, they're 2 seconds back at the top. Okay, cool.
You're like, what? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'd love to know, and I'm sure I'll never know it, but okay, you look at World Champs versus the rest of the World Cup. You couldn't watch World Champs for free on Red Bull. You had to subscribe, like I subscribe to Flow Sports so I could watch it, you know, kind of part of my work thing. If I didn't do this, I probably wouldn't have paid for it. I had 50 texts about how to set up a VPN, like how do you watch it? Where do I watch it? The on-site crowd was ridiculous. It was going to be, but what is the value to the UCI of
limiting that
and these networks of being like, oh, okay, we got 100 subscribers who paid for subscription to watch World Champs versus letting it for free. Like, did they show it online 100,000 times versus 10 million? Like, I'm really curious about the value of that. And I think that's what we'll see with Discovery next year in the World Cup.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting if the advertisers can figure that out, because at a certain point, like that happened with the Pro Motocross series in America this year.
Mm-hmm.
It went on to MTB, which was a paid platform, and then they had a lot of issues like drop coverage, and it was just this big nightmare to the point where MAV said, all right, we screwed up. We can't do this year. It's too much. We give up. We give it to Flow. But the advertisers are the ones that really got screwed.
Well, yeah.
Because they paid, you know, probably millions of dollars cumulatively.
Right. Knowing I'm going to get X, Y, and Z episodes and X, Y, and Z time on.
But people kept getting kicked off the app and couldn't watch replays. And so it is tough. And I hope that maybe the brands that Discovery partners with will be smart enough to understand that, yeah, 10 million eyeballs is better than 100,000 eyeballs that paid $5.99.
Yeah. I'm so curious to see how that works. Cause like Mercedes sponsors the World Cup, and you see Mercedes banners throughout all the XC races, downhill races. That has to be a gajillion eyeballs. But if that's going to be limited, will they want to be involved to see 20,000 eyeballs? Like, I have no idea. It'll be interesting. And I just love to know the ins and outs of how all that works in the background.
Yeah. And it was interesting too, because Red Bull presenting it, Red Bull itself sells a product. Yep. So therefore the entire series is a marketing asset.
Yeah.
I don't know what product Discovery sells aside from advertising.
And subscriptions to their services.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I feel like, I don't know. Yeah. This whole subscription, like pay $4.99 to watch every different thing is kind of crazy, because it was originally billed as, oh, it'll end up being cheaper than cable TV. And now everyone's having like 10 or 15 subscriptions that add up to quite a bit. But or you can just go on YouTube and there's some guy streaming it for free. So it's like, that's what I did. Yeah, I watched it on YouTube.
Someone?
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Same with motocross. I'm just like, dude, it's so complicated to figure out. Okay, I have to buy the MAVTV app, and then I have to file for a refund because it was $79 and they're giving it back. Now I got to go to Flow and do $129. You're just like, I'll just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's crazy that basically those organizations end up acting as a middleman. Keeping you, like, they separate you from the content, but at the end of the day, they also are the production company with the cameras and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's not cheap to make those races go. So
it'd be cool to see athletes like Jack or Jesse Melamed and those guys getting a kickback from the EWS for advertising their coverage, or basically, you know, like, because they're acting as a production arm, and they're, in some cases, they could argue through viewership that they're the largest production arm in some capacity. So it's like, should then the EWS series be compensating those riders for their production capability? Because they're there's so many ways it could go. Yeah. So that was one question.
Next year's going to be an eye opener. Either like, hey, this worked out just fine, or something needs to change in 24. So.
Yeah, I think Crankworks is a good model.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great model. There's so many people there. There's so many disciplines of the same nature that model seems perfect, you know? And it's one of those interesting things where people talk about, well, if you could just get away from the UCI, like have every racer just race Crankworks, but the UCI is so, you know, just envelops all of cycling, and then you have world championships and this and that. There's just like this prestige thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like the PGA Tour with Live Golf right now, where, you know, it's like separate. But then now, because Live started to really grow and like pay their athletes, now the PGA found like $250 million to pay the athletes that they like weren't doing before. So it's hard. I remember 2015 or 16 when enduro started to become more of a thing, and USA Cycling said that if you raced any non-sanctioned event, you'd lose your license. And so then like Annika Beerton did a race down in SoCal, and her name was like Porky Springs.
No way.
Yeah, like registered under that. And it's like all the athletes are just registering under pseudonames to like go do these California Enduro Series events and stuff. And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's just, so crazy. I don't know. It's in my opinion, things like that, although they are business savvy in some capacity, they're operating from the wrong place of intentionality where it's like, isn't the goal to grow the sport and help kids find bikes and keep them out of trouble?
Yeah. And just, yeah, what the
Like,
nature of mountain biking is, you know, like just in the Discovery kind of intro video that they had, like, we're going to take mountain biking to a new level. We're going to do this, that, as if it was F1 racing. Like, I don't think most mountain bikers want that or think like that, you know, like this really super gnarly corporate polished kind of thing. Like, we go out in the dirt and we crash and have a bike that's noisy and a chain that's rusty sometimes. Like, it's,
and sleep in the parking lot.
yeah,
Like Whistler made it illegal to sleep in the parking lot now when Vail bought it. And so then, you know, everyone just like covers her windows and then knock, knock, knock. You just ignore the cop coming.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
how big of a part of the scene was that? Just the ability to like ride, go to Longhorn, and then go to the parking lot and crash and then ride again. And
Yeah. And like, whether it's like, I don't know if the higher ups consider it freeloading and all that, but yeah, just
we might
the
just be
nature
old
of what mountain
crotchety
biking
dudes
is.
by now.
We might be. Yeah. Yeah. But we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I'm very curious. One other question I had. If there's someone out there who's listening to this interview who's like a mini Spomer,
I hope you're not out there.
I guess what would you tell someone if they wanted to make a career in the bike industry? What skill set would be the most valuable to focus on developing? And just some of the examples that I had written down is like, you know, writing, filming, photography, getting good at feeling a bike and testing stuff, on camera speaking, or just like being good at personal relationships and like eye contact and handshakes and things like that. What do you think?
all of that. Like, if this was 15 years ago, I think it'd be way easier to give a little more succinct answer. But with the way people can make a living now, like, you could be a professional TikToker, you know, you could be a writer and just, you know, write for a brand or for websites. Like, I don't know if you could actually make a living doing that only, but
Like, what skill set do you value the most when looking at a new hire for a company like Vital?
spelling and grammar, like, not even kidding, just because even though it's a website, internet, you can go back and edit and fix things. And I made a hilarious mistake yesterday. I said, view our YouTube channel, ARE, instead of our, and I just got reamed for it. I was just in a daze typing, and like, I made that mistake. It happens, you know, we all make mistakes, but there's just a level of professionalism that's shown when you have solid writing skills, spelling, grammar. And I personally enjoy conversational nature of writing. When I hear someone's voice and they're writing, when they're not trying to market the bike, like, this bike was great, you know, it sent me into the ether and it's a dream come true. Like, that doesn't do a lot for a product review, you know?
I agree.
I don't know. Like, it's, the skill sets are so different, and the stuff I do on a daily basis, and a lot of our staff does on a daily basis, is computer work and being at a desk. You know, it's not like we're going out to ride the coolest bikes and we're filming all the time. It's awesome. Like, it takes a lot of work to do the processing. And you know this now. Look at this setup. Like, it took you forever to get it set up. And so I never set out with the goal of having this be a career. It just kind of happened naturally. And I was fortunate enough to have friends and support. And but it's just like, if you like something and want to do it, just keep grinding it out. It took a lot of grinding out. It took a lot of being underpaid at times. And I think with anyone that's still in this industry, they started out that way. Like, you don't, hey, I'm a photographer, it's my first gig, can I get $15,000? It's probably not going to happen. Like, you have to make the relationships, you have to spend the time, you have to have the experience. And so I think that level of patience is probably part of it too. So
Yeah, I think a lot about, you know, basically a younger me, and those kids that are like, I just want to be a part of it. You know, I want to be in it. I want to be a part of it. What do I do? And I don't know. It's tough because, you know, the answer is basically just try everything and fail at most of it.
for sure,
And then
failure.
like, get good enough to figure out how to use Photoshop a little bit and get good enough to know how to write, and then try to figure out how social media works a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's tough because I wish there was a better answer. Like, when I get a lot of times parents will email me and say, hey, my kid, you know, 16 years old, all they want to do is be in the bike industry. They want to go to college. What course should they study, or what, you know? Like, dude, it's so hard. Cause I mean, the most important thing in my opinion is like handshake and eye contact
Yeah.
and going to the trade shows or to the races.
Being present. Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
being there.
Yeah. And I think it's cool. Parents are reaching out on their kids' behalf.
But the kids should be reaching out.
Yeah. I think that's important. And like, I reached out to, Eric at Cycle Syndicate and met some lifelong friends through that. I reached out to Brad because someone said, hey, they're doing this. Like I think it's just that initiative. And I mean, I could stack to the roof all the emails I've sent that have received no answer, but if you want it, go ask. What's the worst going to happen? Say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark Weir, he was one of the guys that kind of helped me quite a bit when I was younger. And he said, when it comes to working with companies or emailing people, if they say no, that doesn't mean no. That means you got to find a new way to package it, ask again. So it's like, hey, will you give me $5,000? No. Well, what if I do this, this, and this? No. Okay. Well, what if I do this? Yeah, that's fine. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Like, we'll comp your travel.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, will you send me to Mega Avalanche? Yeah, we can do that. So there's always a way to ask, but yeah, it's very difficult when you're working in a small niche industry because basically everyone gets asked to wear so many hats. And even, from this side as being like a creator now or, racer, it's like train, try to get fast, get fit, work on racing, send sponsor emails, negotiate your contracts, and then also do product development and feedback, try to understand how things work, learn a little bit of the basics of engineering, and then also like travel and booking and all that. But yeah, for kids, I feel like a good example, this was another one I wanted to ask was, a good example of this is this kid, Brian Cahill. You know?
Brian Cahill. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing the Let's Go Racing series.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like a few years ago, Pink Bike did a series called The Privateer where they took a non-sponsored pro rider named Adam and they put him through a training program and got him sponsored from different companies. Basically, they set out to see if his results would change with like a pro program. And then, last year you guys kind of started something kind of similar called Let's Go Racing and with Brian, who's a buddy of mine from NorCal. How did that come about? And like, what's your vision for that series? And was that spearheaded by Brian reaching out?
That was 100% Brian. It's like, hey, I want to do this. Are you guys down? Talked a little bit more. Yep, go for it. It's all him, completely hands off. And there's an example. Like if an up and coming kid wants to be in the industry, just do your stuff, make your content, pitch an idea. If no one buys it, make it anyway and put it out somewhere. That's what Brian did. That's what a lot of our content comes that way. People pitch the idea. It's their idea. It's their vision. Like, yeah, sure. Or, well, it doesn't really fit with what we do. But yeah, that was all Brian's thing. And so we did it last year. And it went okay. And, he and I talked a little bit and the focus on kind of the product and the gears, what he's done this year. That's been a bigger hit. I think there's
For sure.
more of an interest in it. And he's done weird things like running a different front and rear wheel, trying all the different suspension and stuff and documenting how those experiences have gone for him. So
yeah, for people that haven't seen it, there's a few episodes he's done this year where he'll basically try 5 different suspension forks. And throughout the video, he'll say, hey, I'm going to try these 5 forks like Oleans, RockShox, Fox, all that. I'm not sure which one's best, but this is unbiased and I just want to have the best bike to go racing this year. So then he sorts through it and figures out which one is best for him. So it's cool reading the comments. Like those videos are 30 to 35,000 views on a lot of them now. And reading the comments, that's one of those things where, it's not a 1 million view video, but how many products did that convert or sell or help people understand their product better? I think that's one of those things that's like such a good positive impact on the industry that you might not correlate and be like, oh, well, it didn't get 100,000 views. It's like,
but yeah, the discussions are
keep
great.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the feedback from the people that do comment like, oh, you had this experience with that fork. That's crazy. Mine was this way. And so there's discussion back and forth that gets brought up. And I think it's informative for anyone. You watch the video or you can go into the comments to learn.
Yeah. We've been trying to push brands that we work with, especially to like really take some time and read through the comments and we'll screenshot some and send them to them. But it's very interesting because you get such an, unfiltered, unbiased, honest opinion.
For sure.
And I think sometimes brands need that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, I had a good one with a company we're working with the other day in protection space. And like, I was scared to send the email because I was like, this might go bad, like this.
Really?
Yeah. This is prototype product. It's not working well. This might not be good. And, I sent it anyways. And the guy's like, dude, thank you. We never get feedback like that. It's so helpful. Like we're going to make these changes. And so it's hard.
That's
I feel
cool.
like brands don't get that a lot. You know?
And they need it for that reason. Some might take offense. Like, hey, I've worked on this for 3 years. How can you not like it? But if they're receptive, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I told April, I'm like, fingers crossed, click send. But thank you for doing this. This is cool.
Dude, this is awesome. And let me not forget, and I should have said this first and foremost, but Terry Seberg back in the day, she's a huge reason to push me into litter, because I thought about it and did it, and she really encouraged me. Like, what are you waiting for? Do it. She sent me photos. She wrote stories. She was out there doing stuff and wanted it put somewhere. And so, yeah, T-Berg.
Oh, I actually have a couple listener questions.
Sweet.
Let me pull these up real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Does your laptop play VHS tapes?
I think this is quite a bit thicker than
the
the
wrong
laptop.
connector.
Okay, let's see. So we have a Patreon account, and basically it's people that are kind of part of a community
Yeah.
that we do. And
Can I ask, does that do well for you? Like,
yeah, it's
are
cool.
those real things? Like, they end up being real, like, kind of things to do?
I think that the cool thing about it, so Patreon's been cool. And I think the biggest thing is, again, like that kind of unfiltered, unbiased, just really good crowdsourcing. And we can put out ideas, or, put out a few different thumbnails and be like, what do you like? And then they'll tell you. And
You do thumbnail feedback?
yeah, it's,
Dude, that's sick.
yeah, it's like, I mean, it's just people that are just super supportive and really cool. And one of the guys that I've met that has become a really good friend, his name's John Dubois, and he ran an AI analytics data firm,
No
you know,
way,
and
yeah.
he's just been super cool. And they sold it last year, and he helped me a lot with like business development management. And
Huh, cool.
yeah, he was just our first Patreon, and he like subscribed. And I was like, hey, we don't really have this set up. Can I refund you? Like, and you can just come back when it's set up. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, that's okay. And then come to find out, he's like this really, really successful, awesome dude. And
Wow,
he's
cool.
been super helpful. So it's cool. But yeah, so we crowdsourced a couple questions, and this guy said, Adrenaline Zen MTB. He said, the only time I think I've used their website is when it had more accurate and detailed specs and standards of my bike than the manufacturer Trek. So that's one portion of what you guys do as
Yeah,
well.
product guide probably, yeah.
What is Vital's niche, and how do they offer what do they offer that would keep me coming back? Not a slam by any means, just ignorant on my part.
Yeah, well, it sounds like he got through to the product guide, which is a massive portion of our site. And like people that just come in for raws or slideshows, they might not go over to the product guide side. But as far as our niche, like we're kind of downhill, gravity, trail, enduro specific. We're at the big World Cup races and get the behind the scenes, action with the Vital Raw. But if he's on YouTube only, like he can see all those on YouTube too. But as far as the site goes, it's just a more dedicated kind of in-depth place to be for, kind of bike nerding out and getting into the forum and seeing our reviews, see what our tech editors get done with the products and stuff. So it's
kind of weird to hear feedback like that though, huh?
No, but it's just like, man, putting into words, like why go to our site? Like, that's good to think about, because so much of it's probably on autopilot for so many people, and that doesn't last forever. So,
yeah, for me,
I
like
think if you want to get deeper into a community of serious riders, like that's who's there.
yeah, and for me, it was always, at least in the past, checking on the North American race scene. That was kind of like, I would go to Pink Bike to see all the kind of industry news as far as, oh, this new product came out or this new product came out. And then I'd go to Vital. That would also be there with a little bit better review from Terman. So it'd be like a more in-depth dialed review that I would trust. And then also it'd be like Pro GRT result here, North American Enduro Cup or Big Mountain Enduro. And I feel like that focus on North American racing has waned a little bit. And now it feels like Pink Bike and Vital, a lot of times you'll basically go to Pink Bike, it's one thing, you go to Vital, it's like the same overlay almost. But then I like the original content that Vital puts out when you guys do it.
Yeah. And we've had Jack Rice at we call it the USDH races. So he's still covering the national and kind of regional downhill stuff, like downhill Southeast. And if there is a national, like try to get him there. So still trying to get that done.
It'd be cool to see. I like the B practice podcast.
Yeah, with Jason and Dak and Tanner and Austin. Yeah, it's so good.
I think it'd be cool to see a highlight a little bit more on the athletes in the North American scene. If maybe you guys could do a series, or, like how you did the contenders in 09, it'd be cool to, like Kaylee Skelton and all these different people like Nick Nestroff. And it'd be cool to learn a little bit more about them and see, like, there's one kid that's been crushing it this year, Max Beaupre. And it's like, I don't know anything about him, or I can follow social media, but I feel like a lot of times athletes aren't the best at letting themselves show through their social media. It's mostly just like random riding clip, random riding clip, random riding. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, having Jason Schroeder on, he's been with us about a year now, I guess. And so he's kind of bringing that younger vibe. He knows that younger generation of downhillers. He used to race World Cup himself. And so it's good having him on. So he's getting kind of expanding what he does and learning the ropes pretty good.
Yeah. And I remember you telling me a long time ago that for your guys' website, I mean, sometimes like just a random Camelback review will be like the most viewed thing that month or something.
Sometimes, yeah. It's crazy what sticks or what gets found. Like it just kind of depends. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. And then Garrick, he said, does coverage of more extreme racing events feed the public perception of mountain biking as an extreme sport? Does this possibly turn away people that may enjoy mountain biking before they try it? How does the role of Vital differ from a site like the one Kyle and April curate? How are the key users of the sites different? And what potential does each have to grow the sport in different ways? So that's kind of a multifaceted question, but essentially, yeah. What do you think?
Elite level riders are freaking extreme. Like they're out doing that. And so I think,
yeah, it'd be unfair to not show that.
For sure. Yeah. And I think because I've been in it so long, and our audience, like our general Vital audience, has been in it so long, like they understand that's what that is. They want to follow with that and keep it going. But not sure if you've seen, but there's got a kid down in the South, and he's been doing some POVs from down there for us. And he's a good kind of sport level rider and does some good POVs. Like not everything is Vital Raw. Like we've got things that are a little more beginner friendly, and we're trying, but definitely our interest and our focus is experienced and kind of higher level, I think. But when you're here and April's here and you're helping get people in, it's kind of like, okay, where are they going to be at in 5 years? And maybe they'll want to look at the things we're doing. So,
yeah.
And I think it's great that we're all here. You gotta have everything,
Yeah. I've seen that quite a few times in like, random, you're driving across the country, you stop at a gas station and you have bikes on the back and the attendant goes, "Are you one of those crazy dudes that jumps off the cliffs?"
Yeah, right. They see Rampage and they're like, "That's what you do?"
Yeah. You're like, "No, actually I'm out with my girlfriend on a ride through nature today."
Yep.
So it is funny, the perception of mountain biking. But I feel like honestly, the local bike shop's role and the local community's role is to kind of like break that down and show what the local area is like, right? Because if you live somewhere gnarly, like if you live in Bellingham or Squamish, like you might have a different experience than if you lived in, Winnemucca, Nevada or something, right?
Yeah.
So that is very interesting. But yeah, I agree. I think it's good that both need to exist, and
we all have our place, kind of just like humans. Everyone's a little bit different,
Yeah. And then there was one other question. Dan, he's kind of a funny dude. He said, "What can we do about Bentonville giving itself the title of mountain biking capital?"
Dude, that rubbed me the wrong way so badly. If you haven't seen on like some of the site posts and Facebook stuff, and I know it's just marketing.
Yeah.
And I like Winter Park used to be mountain bike, or maybe it was like mountain biking capital of the USA. Like it's just marketing, and I get it. And it sounds like what they're doing out there is ridiculous. Just like tons of trails. It's transforming the town. But I'm like, come on, capital of the world.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting because that really does tie back into Garrick's previous question, which is when you go to Bentonville, like, have you been there yet?
No.
Okay.
But I tune in the POVs like Kyler when I asked him about it, and he kind of gave me a lay of the land. He's like, it's like maybe the vert of Eagle, but there's tons of features, thousands of miles of trails. Like it's pretty cool, but there's some East Coast jank, which is cool. So it sounds like the riding is super fun. And I'm not a big vert guy. Like I love small amounts of vert and just kind of like going out for an hour and a half. That place sounds like it would be sweet.
Yeah. And what's crazy is like we were going on a little ride and we stopped, and then like a pack of 30 kids on like varying from Walmart bikes to like full on high end, little kid bikes are just like riding to school together on a trail with tabletops.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know. It's interesting because I had a conversation with one of the people about the mountain biking capital of the world. And as a core rider, I think we think of it as like the gnarliest, most rad trails. But it's like, what if it's the mountain bike community capital of the world? Because every night there's a big group ride and then kids ride to school. And there's literally like sidewalks with rollers and pump tracks built in on the way to the class. And you're just like, it's mountain biking is a huge component of the people's life there. But
I think that's awesome. And it sounds like it'd be a super cool place to be and to live and like to get more kids on bikes, do it. Part of me has just
reservations.
Well, it just, is that offensive to people who have invested in mountain biking their whole life in Bellingham or in Whistler or in Denver? Like, I don't know. There's so many places where there are community aspects like that. And again, it's just marketing. And that's why I'm talking shit on the marketing, but it's like, I don't know, like capital of the world, come on. And then you go to Europe and look at what they have there. And I don't think it has to be about being super gnarly. I don't ride the gnarliest stuff ever. Like I can't, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they definitely could have titled it something like a mountain bike capital of the world.
Yeah.
Or something,
And it works and it gets attention. And like, I totally understand why they're doing it. But if I was going to call Vital the mountain bike website of the world or the planet, like, well, I'd expect some feedback and some
the Milky Way.
Need the Galaxy is the next one.
And then one of his other questions was, how can we bring back Team Robot?
And can't. Team Robot is an enigma. In fact, I gave you that litter sticker. He got the fourth to last or whatever. And he did a couple articles and he gets all hyped and amped and has his, his time where it's like, yeah, we're going to do this. Let's go. And then he gets distracted by something else, like squirrel over there. And so he does his thing. And so if we can get little glimpses of Team Robot here and there, that'd be awesome.
He had one of the funniest sponsored athlete things I've ever seen in my life, which was he was riding for Felt at the time, I think a year after I had stopped riding for them. And they basically wanted to leverage Team Robot website with Felt to try to basically use Team Robot as a marketing arm for Felt. And that was part of the reason they sponsored him and stuff, right? So then I think one of the higher up guys, for people that don't know what Team Robot is, it's basically like a website that was just memes and just making fun of and just talking crap about everything in mountain biking.
Yeah. And a lot of it was true, and that's why it resonated with people. Or there was truth to it, I should say.
But yeah, so then at the end of the year, they're like, hey, you didn't fulfill your quota of like 3 posts. So he just did a post. It's like, I love my Felt bicycle. This is the best bicycle in the world. It makes me go faster than any bicycle in the world. And then it was so funny. Like all the comments were so funny.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a character and a half.
Sweet.
Cool. Is there anything else that you kind of want to touch on that you can think of?
I'm curious about what you think the future of all this looks like. You and April have definitely made a go at this, and it seems like you're one of the few channels to really succeed and blow up in the last few years. It seems like that's going to get harder and harder to do. So much more content, but I'd love to know where you want to go.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting because, like you said, there's a lot of channels that are kind of competing to grow right now. But I feel like a lot of them are focusing on the same audience as like a Pink Bike or Vital. And then it's not that we consciously focused on something different, but when we started, basically it all started, PNW sent me email during the pandemic. They said, hey, we're trying to figure out some content stuff. Would you be able to do like a how to manual video? And I started doing a YouTube channel, kind of competing a little bit for that standard audience, but also doing more tech videos. Like I did a couple of drone reviews and I was just kind of experimenting and trying to learn how to edit videos. So PNW sent us a email. I said, yeah, let's do it. And then I was just thinking, I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to see if like April could learn, because she's been wanting to learn how to manual just in the pump track, just like in between 2 rollers. So yeah, we just did a video, kind of scripted it roughly and then put it together. And I think I posted it, and it was so funny because one of the guys from Dirty Sanchez, like Casey Sanchez, he commented and he's like, watching pro athletes try to save their career is like watching paint dry.
Oh man.
So that's what he commented. Like, it's super boring. This sucks. It's not worth, why are you even wasting your time doing this? So then that kind of hurt me, because I, raced with that guy for a long time, and not trying to call him out, but it was just interesting because core audience member, we used to race a lot together, like totally part of that demographic. And so then I was like hesitant to even share it or post it. And then we uploaded it to YouTube, and it got like, I think 3,000 views or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like that was good for my channel at the time. And then we did a drop video the week after, and then that one got like 30,000 views. And then they just kept growing from there. And it was interesting because, yes, to an athlete, like a younger guy like Casey or someone, it does sound like, or it's like watching paint dry, right? But to an older person or someone who's new to the sport, like all those little nuances that people overlook, like, yeah, drop your heel. What if you never heard that before?
Yeah.
But if you're ingrained in it, then it's boring because you're like, yeah, I know you're supposed to grab the handlebar like this, or I'm supposed to put the seat up here and down here. So anyways, it started to grow, and then we started attracting like a completely different audience, which was very interesting because I think that was an audience that the core mountain bike industry had kind of neglected in a lot of ways. And so they were very hungry for a home. And then when they started to find April, who's just like super relatable and doing a really great job, she's trying hard to learn. And then myself, like I had just enough of the kind of credibility that people would trust it, but then also like
National enduro champ. What do you mean credibility? Like you shred.
yeah, but it was like, I don't know, it was just a cool mix. And so I think the difference there was that we hit a different audience that hadn't been talked to. And so that's why it absorbed a lot of like more of the Seth Bike Hacks type audience, like Burn Peak, you know, he has 2 million subscribers, and I think probably 500,000 of them don't even ride bikes. It's just people that are into this.
Something entertaining to watch, kind of. Yeah.
Like that's cool storytelling. So yeah, anyways, I feel like a lot of the channels, they kind of focus on the core demographic, like how do I make something cool for Vital? And I think if we try to focus on that, then it's doing a disservice to our community, which is like the mothers and fathers and 40-year-old plus. And we do have some younger people as well. Like there's a lot of little kids. Some kid came up to me at Sea Otter this year. And he's like, dude, you taught me how to wheelie. And I was like,
No way.
yeah, I was like, that's so cool. Like, I don't know if he has a dad or not or what, but I mean, it's weird to be the guy that taught this kid how to wheelie, you know? So I don't know. It's been cool, but future, I want to try to focus on expanding that base and trying to help those people get more into the racing side or into that, you know, more core side. Because I don't know.
Like as their skills get better, then
Yeah. Or just interest level wise, like why do you care about downhill racing? You know, why, you know,
I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
And I know what they're doing is crazy. So,
but I remember talking to April too, like before she got into mountain biking more, she's like, oh, it looks so easy. But if you don't know that it's hard, then it's like all these people are just riding down a hill. Like this is super weird.
Yeah.
So you don't know the nuance. So I feel like if you can teach people that, it helps. And I remember the first time I rode a dirt bike, so I'd gone to Supercross races watching. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I rode a dirt bike, and then I went to another Supercross race, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are insane. Like those ruts are so gnarly. And how did they do that in this? And so if we can be a funnel to help introduce people into the sport that I fell in love with and was a huge part of my life, and now it's a huge part of April's life, I think that would be really cool.
yeah.
But yeah.
Do you think there's going to be pandemic fall off? Like you mentioned, you know, there's tons of bikes for sale. Like, do you think a lot of people that started or tried, it's not going to be for them?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like a lot of it will just be time. You know, like if you have excess time, then mountain bike is something you can add to your life. If you don't have excess time, it might be something you cut out. But there will be a lot that stick. So, you know, say there are just round numbers. If you said there's 10 million riders and maybe it went up 30% to 13 million, like maybe now it's at 12.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's, you
especially with trails getting more accessible and more local, like,
yeah, but we've seen that definitely across the content front, on, you know, kind of all channels, not just ours, but viewership is definitely down a bit, and just engagement's down a bit. And I mean, on social media, engagement's down a bit everywhere. And I think the fact you're seeing a lot of these companies who've been in the sport for decades sell to venture capital firms who know nothing about the industry, I think that's a sign that they knew the peak happened. You know, it's like the real estate investor selling the house to the new home buyer right before the market crashes. So it's kind of the same thing, but yeah, we'll see. How about you?
We're pretty steady still. And I think it must be because our audience is always going to ride mountain bikes, you know, I think to some degree. But it ebbs and flows for sure. And we definitely saw the product guide side saw a spike during the pandemic. And I imagine that's someone like, what's a Trek 7000? Like, how much does that cost? And it would be a, you know, search result. So yeah, like that stuff is slowing down, but as far as normal community and like editorial, it's kind of stayed the same. So
yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that the industry, which seems to have such a heavy focus on how to sell the next iteration of a product, I'm hopeful that the industry can start to understand why they're selling the product in the first place. You know, like what is the goal of someone who gets into mountain biking? You know, and a lot of it is fitness based, but a lot of it too is like, I just need something to do that's entertaining or that challenges me, or like, especially in life nowadays, there's so few opportunities really to like push yourself with consequence. You know, like you can go as fast as you want down that trail. And if you blow up, it's on you. Like there's no safety net. There's no, it's just like you're in control, and it's kind of more rare to find that now. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about our sport is that there is an element of ride at your own risk, and the only thing holding you back is you. But I don't know, it's tough. Like, I don't know if I'm communicating that well, but it's just, for me, mountain biking was not just a hobby. It was like a savior.
Yeah. And I mentioned Terry Seberg, and I don't think this is her quote, but you know, she told me like the bicycle is the lonely kid's toy. And like that kind of hit home, and like thinking about why I rode or when I rode, and even what I still do now. It's like, it's an escape. It's a way to feel something that you don't feel, you know, when you're at home or at school or whatever. And I hope that, you know, assuming phone use and social media and things like that are making people lonelier, ironically, hopefully bikes can, you know, pull them out of that if that's where they're going, you know?
Because there's a lot of unhealthy routes people can take, like alcohol addiction or drug addiction or porn addiction or whatever. And so,
and listening to your story, like how it helped you escape. Same thing. Like I hope bikes can be that for people that need it.
Yeah. And like my brother, when he was, I mean, he had motocross as his outlet, but it's a little bit more expensive and the risk of injury is a little higher, not like drastically, but a little higher. And he broke both his legs, and that was when his downward spiral started of drug addiction and abuse and everything, because he lost his outlet. Yeah. So it's like, that's one thing I'm valuing more now, is just like not pushing the limit. And I'm definitely getting older, so that happens, right? Like, but I don't know. I just enjoy being outside. And I feel like a lot of times the industry now, they basically market to the younger kid who's 16 to 24 years old that has some family money and basically can afford a bike, and then they, you know, just go send it and do tricks and whatnot. And I feel like our audience that we tried to connect with is more of like the lonely young kid that's like, I want to learn how to bunny hop, but I'm scared to talk to somebody. And so I want to just like, it's cool that there's this couple who's non-aggressive, and it's just like, hey, here's how you do it. And then that kid can just sit there and be like, oh, cool. And then at Sea Otter, you taught me how to wheelie. And it's like, so I don't know. It makes me emotional think about it, you know, but it's like, yeah, we did a project in Chico, California, like a pump track. And it was a big thing. Anyways, like long story short, but got a pump track built, and it was the only legal area to ride your bike in Chico that wasn't a mountain bike trail. So you can ride mountain bike trails, but there's no dirt jumps. The skate park was illegal. The Chico State campus was illegal. So if you owned a BMX bike or like a dirt jumper, like you had nowhere to go that was legal. And so that was my whole criminal record, was like getting arrested riding that skate park. And so finally built the pump track. And then I remember like a month or two after it's done, 7:30 at night, I'm like driving past, and there's one kid just doing laps. And he's not hooked. Yeah, well, he's not home. Like he's not at home. At dinner. And he's by himself. So it's like, that was me. Okay. You know? So it's like, because when my family was all screwed up, like I didn't want to go home after football practice. So I'd go home, I'd grab my bike and I'd leave. And then I'd try to come home at 1 or 2 a.m. And then just go to sleep and not have to see what was happening at home. So yeah, when I see the kid out there by himself, just like riding, it's like, you don't know, he might just be out there just riding. For sure. No big deal. But it could also be that he doesn't want to be home, and this gave him an outlet where he won't get arrested. And so that was, I mean, I did probably like 100 hours of community service as a teenager because of riding my bike on the sidewalk or at Chico State campus or at the skate park. And I had to do a 9-hour gang violence class because I got busted at the skate park, and they were going to put it on my permanent record. They gave me the option of like doing this gang violence class instead. I remember the park ranger, he finally started to know my name because we'd always run from him. And he's like, if I ever catch you, it's a $5,000 fine. And like $5 is a lot. And so I remember sitting outside of the skate park, and I'd have people stand watch, and I'd run in and like do an abubaca and then stop. And I'd just be like, okay, cool. He's not here. Like, but I wanted to ride so bad, and it was illegal. And I knew it would crush my mom and like my family if I got caught. So it was, I don't know, it's just crazy. You don't think about a lot of that. And I feel like the industry in a big way forgets about those people. Yeah, for sure. But it's something to say about having adversity in your life, you know, like, and pushing through those, whether you failed or not, whether you succeeded, but having that adversity, like
brought you here, and now that kid has a pump track to ride if he doesn't want to go home. Like, it's freaking sick. Like, such a good story.
Well, and like you, because I mean, you wanted to be a part of the industry. You weren't sure that you could make it, you know, as a pro rider, you wanted to still be
sure I could not.
So it's like you found a way to be a part of the industry. And then through your story, you impacted me and gave me something to look at in computer class and zone out and not think about my mom or not think about my brother on drugs. Like, you were the one that put all that together. And so then it's like full circle, right? So hopefully I'll be that person for someone down the road. And hopefully April is someone who inspires all these younger kids.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. It is very interesting, but I mean, back then the industry was so small too. And I remember I would always come to school with like beat up shins from, you know, getting shinners, trying to learn tricks. And this one kid, Chris, he's like, "You suck at bikes." I was like, he's like, "I ride my bike all the time and I don't ever get cut up. Like, how are you always cut?" Well, it's a little different, dude. You know?
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah. So long story short.
Yeah. Didn't you film in that skate park with Corey?
Yeah. Corey
you risked
Tepper.
like getting a ticket?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
awesome.
that was what was crazy is I went to the city council meeting, and again, like Chico, California called it Bike City USA.
And
so
you can't
then,
ride anywhere.
Yeah, I showed up at the city council meeting and I had like a bunch of PowerPoint presentation stuff with pictures of kids getting arrested on bikes. And I was like, Bike City USA.
How'd they take it?
They were like, "We need to fix this." And then they did.
Okay. And that's how like pump track momentum got going?
Yeah. Within 1 year we had a pump track.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool because the card manager at the time, like Chico Area Recreation District, his name was Jerry Haynes. He's this older guy. And yeah, he's like, "This is really sad that like, obviously you're trying to be a good kid and you keep getting in trouble because you just want to ride your bicycle. Like, this isn't right." And so he's like, "We're going to reappropriate some money and just make this happen for you guys."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's back to your thing of like, you just need to basically push, like how Brian came to you with the idea for Let's Go Racing. Like, just push and make it happen.
Yep. Yeah.
But I don't know. Where do you think that comes from with people? Like, where did you get that?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think I'm kind of a late bloomer in that I would just kind of follow the crowd or go with, you know, whatever. I didn't want to be the guy that stuck out. But my dad always wanted to be. He'd always, you know, go up and ask, "What's the worst they can say?" You know? And I still have a hard time doing that, but over email and on the computer, it's way easier. But yeah, I guess just through family and probably a desire of like working a 9 to 5 and realizing how lame it was, like how much I didn't want to do that. And then just, I don't know, taking my spare time to just follow what I wanted to do. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
just did. And I was fortunate enough to either have support or the means to follow these dreams. You know, I know not everyone's that fortunate to just be like, "Oh, go follow your dreams. Go be a mountain bike photographer. Just go do it." Not everyone has the ability to go do that, you know? So yeah, just been fortunate.
I'm glad you did though.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Feel pretty blessed to have done it. So
Yeah. Is there anything like, how stoked are you to be a dad and have kids that ride?
oh, it's terrifying.
Are you?
Yeah. No, but I'm stoked. And they have fun on their bikes, and I kind of see my relationship with my dad turning out with them. Like, if my dad would tell me something, I'd completely ignore it and do the exact opposite. And they do the same thing, like just talking about, like they're going up a hill and they're in the hardest gear. I'm like, "You have 9 speeds on that. Like, you know, try and shift up." Meh, whatever. I'll try and pound it through. And then like Steve Wentz came over one day and said the same thing. And they're like, "Oh, really? Yeah, we'll shift right away. That's awesome." So just trying to let them do their own thing. And I'm not pushing them into riding bikes. If we go ride bikes, it's fine. But, you know, this is probably 2 years ago now, but we were watching Supercross, and, you know, my son Charlie, he was probably 6 at the time. He's like, "Ken Roxon's the best." I'm like, "Wow, that's cool." And then I built him a super ghetto, like Napoleon Dynamite ramp, and they had that out there. And then we had all these pieces of pallet wood. And so they had the ramp, and then they set up pieces of pallet wood to make their own whip section. So then they're hardtail, like fly off that and just going through all on their own. So to see stuff like that, it's super exciting. It's super fun to see. But then taking them to the bike park sometimes, and they want to, you know, hit this or hit that. I'm just like, "I don't want you to. Like, I know what can happen if it goes wrong." And so they're getting their feet wet, but They just learned backflips in the trampoline to my dismay, which is terrifying, but they've got it. They're good. So trying to just be hands off, let them experience and grow on their own and fail. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yep.
Well, sweet. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Dude, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Is there
It was
anything
awesome.
else you want to cover? You good?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
time.
I really enjoyed kind of hearing more about the story of it. And
Thanks.
yeah, it's cool what you've been able to accomplish. And I think that you probably won't be able to really understand the impact you had on the industry until much further down the road, you know, like what Vital has done, at least for North America. I mean, every kid that I went racing with, every single kid in North America was on Vital. And I don't know what it was like around the world, but yeah, you had a huge impact on us.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Huge thank you to Spomer for sitting in and doing this interview with us. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. And I hope there's a lot of little nuggets of information in there. I thought it was pretty cool to hear the backstory of everything. And I'm really stoked to have a couple little goodies for the desk now. So hopefully this will kind of build up over time and we'll have some cool stuff on the table. I also wanted to just say a huge thank you to all of our sponsors for supporting our podcast and our YouTube channel. We couldn't have done it without you guys, and just all of this is possible because of the sponsors. So I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you to them and read them off. These are the brands that support our channel: Niner Bikes, SR Sun Tour Suspension, Ride Concept Shoes, Stan's No Tubes for rims and sealant, Project Filter, Idaho Fights Tobacco. They're a company that basically helps people quit vaping and smoking here in the Idaho area. Schwalbe Tires, get us rolling with all our tire needs. We have PNW Components, who are our cockpit and dropper post sponsor. Feedback Sports, they're all the tools and racks downstairs in the shop area. Laser is a helmet company that we use for full face and half shell helmets. Ninja MTB Performance, they are a coaching company that focuses on getting newer riders into the sport and building up some skills. Shimano is a company that keeps us shifting and braking, which is pretty nice, and definitely been with them for a decade plus, so really appreciate their support. And finally, we have Jensen USA, which is a huge supporter of our channel and the podcast, and really appreciate them being a part of the channel. So thank you again, and also huge thanks to all our Patreon and our audience in general. You guys make all this possible as well, and we really appreciate you guys.